5 Live Formula One.
Hello and welcome to the Autodromo Nazionale Monza, where we are getting ready for the start of the Italian Grand Prix. I tell you what, the passion is high, the expectation is high, and I'd say the tension is high as well. And that's not mentioning the mercury. It is nudging 30 degrees here in Monza. It is hot, hot, hot on the grid, and it's incredibly busy. Of course, Carlos Sainz, our pole sitter this afternoon, is the 23rd pole position for Ferrari here in Monza. It's his fourth career pole and his first pole of 2023. He lines up alongside Max Verstappen. We're getting excited for the start of the race, I have to say. And I'm going to bring in our lead commentator, Harry Benjamin, former Formula One driver Jolyon Palmer. Jolyon, there are quite a few challenges, aren't there, for this afternoon?
Yeah, it's a really fast circuit. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be over in a flash, really. It's quite an individual circuit, this.
Yeah, lots to get a handle on. Let's hear from the two Ferrari drivers, the home heroes, Carlos Sainz on pole and Charles Leclerc P3, talking to Federica Masselin.
Wow, Charles. My first question can start from them. How special is for you to race here, having all the support of the Tifosi and everyone here?
It's always extremely special, the feeling of being in Italy, especially here in Monza. There's always an extra push and an extra motivation, so really looking forward to today.
Yesterday night you had the Tifosi close to your hotel. How energy they give you to you?
A lot of energy, for sure. Yeah, it was I think 10:30, so it was quite late in the evening. But all the tifosi were down the hotel and starting singing. So I slept well. It was the perfect music to go and sleep. So yeah, now fully recharged and fully motivated for today.
On the podium here, it's possible to see a 1-2.
This is the target. This will be my dream. This is definitely what we are going to try and achieve today. We need also to be realistic. On the Sunday, we normally are less competitive than the Red Bull, and I think it will be the case today. But if we play a good team game, it could be possible. So I'll give it all.
Oh, Carlos, the poleman. How do you feel this morning?
Feeling great, like I've been feeling all weekend. Buongiorno, ciao a tutti. Yeah, feeling good, feeling positive, optimistic about today. So yeah, let's go for it.
Are you already imagining the first corner, the start?
Of course, who hasn't? No, I think everyone here has imagined the first corner and has tried to predict a bit what's going to happen today. But I'm going, like I said yesterday, open-minded, trying to give my best today and see if we can make it happen.
Have you slept well tonight?
Yeah.
Or you are nervous?
Yeah, 8 hours, no problem. It's like always, sleeping is not a problem for me. So I woke up with a great feeling. It's impossible not to wake up good and sleep well with all this support and knowing that there's going to be a whole crowd behind you.
Well, there you go. That's your pole sitter, Carlos Sainz. He's going to be leading the field away. But, of course, he's lining up alongside Max Verstappen. And we know how strong the Red Bull car has been this year. And it continues to be weekend in and weekend out. Christian Horner is a busy man on the grid. It's a busy grid at that. He's been talking to some of the media. I'm going to try and get a word with him very shortly just to hear how the team are feeling going up against Ferrari on home soil. Of course, last weekend, when we were racing in Zandvoort, it was Max Verstappen's home soil. Now we're in Italy. I'm going to grab Christian Horner. Good afternoon, Christian. This is incredible in terms of the passion. You can't help but get caught up in it, even as a Red Bull team principal, I imagine.
It's great. I mean, it's like in Holland last weekend, the way the countries are embracing these Grand Prix, the passion of the Tifosi here. You know, they're all here to see their red cars. So, it was a big atmosphere yesterday, and hopefully we can put on a great race today.
Of course, they're here to see a Ferrari on top, but I imagine you've got other plans. How easy is it going to be for Max to get Carlos off the start?
Look, it's never easy, particularly from the dirty side of the grid, but it's not all about the start. It's about, the strategy, the pace, the degradation, and of course what we don't know is how these tires will behave in this temperature.
And finally, what's your expectation, or what do you need Checo to do today?
We want him to join the party. So he's just got to he needs to get ahead of George quickly and get into the Ferraris. Right, well, good luck with both those plans. Christian Horner, team principal of Red Bull, telling us that he wants Checo to get into the park as the flyover goes over the grid, launching red, white and green smoke into the air. I'm coming back to you guys in the commentary box because Sergio Perez optimistic for his race this
afternoon. But of course, he's starting from P5. Christian wants him to join the party with Max up front. That's one of the big questions today, isn't it? Can Ferrari push Max into doing something he doesn't want to do, because it is 2 versus 1 up at the front? Checo needs to get up there quickly, doesn't he, Harry?
He absolutely does. But you know what? I've got confidence in Checo Perez this weekend to get himself in that fight. He had a better Friday than he has done in recent weekends gone by, even with a slight skirmish into the gravel during one of the free practice sessions and a touch of the wall. Didn't seem to deter him. He's also had lots of changes going on that Red Bull, so it hasn't been the smoothest of weekends in terms of changes for that car, but he's feeling fast and confident. And here, well, he'll have 4 cars in front of him that he can make use of the slipstream and the tow, especially on lap 1. It's going to be crucial for him to get into that fight.
Let's go back up to the front of the grid then. Carlos Sainz, of course, P1. I love that quote from the late, great founder of Scuderia Ferrari, Enzo Ferrari. What's behind you doesn't matter. Jolien, that has 2 meanings, I guess, this afternoon. Carlos can't rely on his qualifying performance yesterday, and he needs to not focus on people behind him. He needs to get out there. But what of the Ferrari race pace? Those tyres are going to be degrading. It's incredibly hot here. How would you be approaching the start if you were Carlos?
It's nice when you're starting on pole position, because you have no one in front of you to look at. You have a clear view to the first corner, and you just got to concentrate on your own job. So the quote is kind of true for the start of the race, at least. Don't worry about anything else. Get away cleanly and get into the first corner ahead. Then the quote is going to be tough to follow, because he's going to have to concentrate on Max Verstappen, who starts alongside him, and it's going to be a tough ask still for Ferrari to keep Verstappen at bay. He's an overwhelming favourite from the front row, but a podium is still a good result for Sainz, and he can dream of a win. You never know what can happen, and his teammate starting in third could yet provide a little bit of ammo to fight Red Bull as well.
Now, of course, these hot temperatures, whilst it means we've got to be cautious when it comes to tyre management, in fact, it kind of creates possibility to offset a little bit the strategy and opens up some strategic choices, doesn't it, Harry? But it's a one-stop, surely, here, unless we see a VSC or a safety car and the race is neutralised.
Yeah, that's what we're expecting. History tells us it's a one-stop, and if we're starting on the softer compound of tyre, usually maybe around lap 20, 26, we can expect them to come out of the 53 laps we'll be racing. But of course, this whole weekend we've been running the alternative tyre allocation, which mainly has affected practice and qualifying, reducing the amount of sets that each team has get in a bid for sustainability, but also to spice up some of the action. I think it certainly works spicing up the action in qualifying, but shouldn't have too much of an effect on the race now, as you say, with these temperatures. Should be a one-stop. Some further back might try a gamble with a 2-stop, maybe switching onto a medium, but it really depends on how the first few laps unfold.
Certainly does. And I'm just going to bring in team principal of Mercedes, Toto Wolff. What a spectacle this. Were you surprised that George was able to get ahead of at least one Red Bull yesterday?
Yeah, he had a very good session. So let's see what's possible today.
And for Lewis Hamilton, of course, a difficult one yesterday. Hasn't been feeling at one with the car. Do you feel the race might be different?
Yeah, he didn't have a lot of confidence yesterday, so let's see if it's better today.
Are you enjoying this disco feel?
Yeah, I mean, this is unbelievable.
It really is. Thank you, Toto. Good luck. Yes, it's more like being in a nightclub in Milan, Harry, I have to say at the moment. The atmosphere is amazing. The grandstands are packed out. And of course, you know what they're wearing. They're wearing red. They're here to support Scuderia Ferrari. Harry, do you reckon it could be their day?
Oh, well, I mean, it is a sea of red, isn't it, this time around? Last weekend, it was a sea of orange for Verstappen, very much for the Tifosi this weekend and for Ferrari. But Jolien, what about this? 1988. We talked about it a lot this year. McLaren nearly win every single race of the championship, bar one, Monza, in which Gerhard Berger and Michele Alboreto get a 1-2 for Ferrari. Could Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc dare to dream?
Yeah, I mean, you can hope. You can hope more than dream, I think. Is going to need bad luck, I think, to affect Red Bull. They have the fastest car in race trim, even if Sainz managed to edge out Verstappen by 13 thousandths yesterday. But you never know. It can happen. Things happen in Monza. Just a couple of years ago, Daniel Ricciardo took a shock win for McLaren, his final win in Formula One thus far. Things can happen on this circuit. Pierre Gasly's taken a win here the year before that as well. So you never know. And Verstappen will have to make an overtake to win the race. So that's at least something they've got in their locker. They'll start from the front. And in 1988, bad luck befell McLaren. If it happens to Red Bull, and mainly Verstappen again, Ferrari have got to be there to pick up the pieces.
That is the one thing we haven't quite seen from Max Verstappen yet. A little bit of bad luck. It has so far been going his way. You might say you make your own luck. Well, Verstappen has certainly been doing that, and he will be aiming to break all the records come the end of this Grand Prix and try and get his 10th consecutive championship win in Formula One. It really would be something. Right now he is tied with Sebastian Vettel for that record and Alberto Ascari, but there's a few caveats within that record, but certainly Verstappen then on the dirty side of the grid though could potentially get a slightly worse start, do you think, Jolien, compared to those on the other side of the grid, like Sainz, like Leclerc?
He might do, but it didn't cost him too much being on the dirty side in Budapest when he started second and led into the first corner, overtaking Lewis Hamilton. So he's still going to be there as a threat. His starts have been a little bit erratic so far this year, though. He's either flying forward, but he has also had a couple of times where he's lost ground at the start. And Lando Norris beat him to the lead at the first corner from second at the British Grand Prix a couple of months ago now. So it can happen. And Max doesn't need to take risk at the first corner either. Christian Horner's just told Rosanna there that it's not about turn one, the dash there and all or nothing. It's about trying to execute a strategy over 53 laps. And the longer the race goes on, the more you think Red Bull should become stronger with their time management.
Well, it really is a party atmosphere around this track. The grandstands are full, aren't they, Rosanna? The grid is absolutely packed and everybody's raring to go.
They certainly are. And do you know what? It's that conundrum. Is it motivation or is it pressure for the Ferrari drivers this afternoon? They've got the weight of a nation on their shoulders, and Carlos Sainz, of course, taking most of that on pole position. And it was Charles Leclerc, actually, who dipped a wheel into the gravel on one of his install laps. So all that pressure, is it going to mount up? Is it going to force mistakes? Are they going to be so intent on delivering a 1-2 or both of them on the podium this afternoon that they might make a little bit of a mistake? Who knows? So much to look forward to in this start and the race, of course.
It certainly is, isn't it? And well, we are running in terms of tyres as well. The softest compounds are available. The red-walled soft tyre, the yellow-walled medium compound tyre, and the white-walled hard compound tyre. But we're in the Monza Royal Parks here, about 9 miles northeast of Milan, at the Temple of Speed, home of the Tifosi, and ahead of us 53 laps of what will be the 93rd Italian Grand Prix. We'll take you through the grid shortly as we build up towards the hour. But Jolien, if we look a little bit further back in the grid, who have you got your eye on?
There's a few drivers towards the back end of the top 10 that will be looking to move forward. Lewis Hamilton, 8th yesterday. He actually starts on the hard tyre, so we've just got the starting tyres through. Everyone ahead of him starts on the medium. It's going to be a one-stop race, surely, with no chance of rain today. And Hamilton, on the hard, will look to go long and come through at the end.
We are moments away from lights out here. Ferrari giving something for the home fans to smile about, with Carlos Sainz starting from pole, but Max Verstappen is looking for his 10th consecutive race win, starts right alongside him. Coverage gets underway, or lights out, in just a couple of minutes' time on the BBC Sport website and app. Okay, well, the grid is certainly set, and the final few bits of preparation are happening. Fans on Lewis Hamilton as he just starts to get his fluorescent yellow gloves on each hand. Alex Albon with visor down, a last-minute adjustment to the helmet. What are the drivers thinking in these last few moments when they've still got a few team members with them around their car?
Concentrating on the start now. It's so crucial, not for Max Verstappen to take the lead, but for all the rest of them. These opening laps and opening corners are critical to transforming the potential outcome of your afternoon. Hamilton 8th, Norris 9th, Alonso 10th. They are 3 fast drivers, all desperate to make up a bit of ground. Piastri did a good job out-qualifying Norris in the McLaren. He starts 7th. Then you've got Alex Albon in the Williams as well, who's got a very fast car in a straight line in 6th. And that's going to be the target for those guys to try and move forward.
Your prediction then, your 1, 2, 3.
Verstappen, Sainz, Leclerc. You?
I'll say something just to be a little bit different. I will go Verstappen, Leclerc, Sainz. Switch the 2 Ferraris around.
Actually,
you can't take it back now.
I'm taking it back.
No.
Verstappen, Perez, Sainz. I think Perez is going to come through in the second Red Bull. He's going to be one to watch. Starts 5th today.
He certainly will be. Well, we are just about set then for the 93rd Italian Grand Prix. Well, it's been a weekend of birthday celebrations for Carlos Sainz, and he tops that with his first pole of 2023 alongside Max Verstappen, who's looking for his 10th consecutive race win in that Red Bull. Charles Leclerc makes it a Ferrari 1-3 on home soil, with George Russell getting another impressive qualifying in the Mercedes, rounds out the top 4. Sergio Perez looking to break into that top 3 here in Italy, starts 5th. Alex Albon confirms his good form in that Williams, starts in the top 6 in front of the McLaren of Oscar Piastri. Lewis Hamilton from 8th has struggled to be at 1 with that Mercedes so far this weekend. He starts ahead of Lando Norris in the McLaren, and Fernando Alonso, with his worst qualifying of the season, rounds out the top 10 in that Aston Martin. The 2 AlphaTauris make up the next row. Yuki Tsunoda ahead of Liam Lawson, the youngest on the grid. The Kiwi driver replacing Daniel Ricciardo last weekend gets his second ever qualifying underway and goes from 12th in front of Nico Hulkenberg in the Haas. Valtteri Bottas in the Alfa Romeo is 14th ahead of Logan Sargent, who rounds out the top 15 in the Williams. Zhou Guanyu in the Alfa Romeo is 16th in front of the 2020 Grand Prix winner here, Pierre Gasly in the Alpine from 17th, with Esteban Ocon making it 2 Enstone cars out in Q1 for the first time since 2016. He starts from 18th. Kevin Magnussen is 19th, with Lance Stroll making up the 20 drivers. Okay, well, across the weekend, over 300,000 people have attended this Monza track. 5.79 kilometres, 3.6 miles, and the championship as well. Well, Verstappen well ahead at the top, 138 points clear of his teammate Sergio Perez as they make their way round on this formation lap, Rosanna.
Oh, what scenes as you look at the grandstands as the Ferrari cars pass them. The Tifosi are on their feet, and there's a mirage, a heat haze along the start-finish straight. It is hot here in Monza. It's 30 degrees or so. This is going to play havoc with the tyre management, as we see, unfortunately, Yuki Tsunoda pulling off into the grassy area off track. A problem for the AlphaTauri already. Yeah, that looks like it's on the back straight approaching the final corner of the Parabolica. Yuki Tsunoda with steam coming off of that AlphaTauri.
Failure, engine failure.
Copy. We'll get a delayed start for that. Tsunoda's pulled off on the entrance to the final corner then, and he's on the grass jumping out the car, and that was a shame for Tsunoda. Started 11th, or was due to start 11th in an AlphaTauri car that had a big chance of points, starting 11th and 12th, but the Japanese driver jumps out, shakes his head, and the rest of the field are lined up on the grid. Sainz had done quite a fast formation lap. He's still sitting there, but they've got to extract that car before we start the race.
Exactly. So while they all line up on the grid, we would expect the yellow amber lights to come on the gantry. A shame for Yuki Tsunoda. Thought he could make it through into Q3, into the top 10 shootout in yesterday's qualifying, but that's sadly not the case, as he has now made his way out of his car and will make his way back as the marshals get to work removing that AlphaTauri. And as you predicted, Jolien, an aborted start, so we'll get another formation lap underway, and that brings a little bit more pressure, a little bit more concentration. They'll have to leave a gap on the grid as well for where Yuki Tsunoda should have lined up in 11th spot.
Yeah, on the outside of the field, everyone keeps their place they qualified on. No one can move up because of Tsunoda, but of course they will gain a place by the time they get off the line. And the marshals now surrounding the AlphaTauri car, trying to move it. He's pulled over in a sensible place as Tsunoda, but they want to get a hurry up because Sainz and actually race control gave the aborted start message pretty quickly.
Car is not turning really well in the right-hand corners. He's all good.
On data, everything is fine.
Copy, good.
He's obviously feeling, that's Charles Leclerc on the radio, starting third on the second formation lap here. He's obviously feeling, as he's turning to the right, something is not feeling very good through the steering rack, or some vibration, or it's a little bit heavier on the right-hand side. He didn't seem sure of it, and the race engineer there on the radio saying it's all good. But that's an odd sensation then from a driver, that normally this part is so run-of-the-mill. They've done this already a number of times this year, and as Charles Leclerc has been in Formula 1 for years already, this is bread and butter for him, starting third here, but he's not feeling 100% confident.
Well, you could hear the roars of the fans in the background as Carlos Sainz on his second formation lap, Rosanna, is just coming through Ascari now.
Yeah, and it's another speedy formation lap, isn't it? He was quick to get to his grid slot the first time round, keeping enough space between himself and Max Verstappen on this second formation lap. As we can see, Yuki Tsunoda's car still on the grass. And of course, once all the drivers bunch up off the race start, Liam Lawson is going to be knocking on the door of points. Of course, that would be his first point score of Formula One, only joining the grid a week ago in Zandvoort. So, you know, out of somebody's misfortune, sometimes there is an opportunity for Liam Lawson. And just a quick one to you, Jolien. I'm curious about Lewis Hamilton's choice to start on the hard tyre. Coming into this weekend, Pirelli were thinking that actually, you know, you could go medium or soft off the start, and maybe you choose the soft to make up some places in the early stages. Of course, the medium giving you a bit more flexibility and a good level of grip at the start. But to go on the hard, do you think that's the right choice for Lewis and the Mercedes?
But he's doing something different there. It'll be a medium-hard strategy for most of the other drivers in the field, but Hamilton will do hard-medium. So he'll reverse the strategy and go long and be racy at the end. It's something that you see fairly regularly with drivers that think they're starting out of position, and Hamilton in 8th obviously does.
Okay, Max, we're expecting the race start to be aborted, so expecting you to switch your engine off and be a 5-minute delay.
So that was GP talking to Max Verstappen there, and well, they made their way back around to the grid and have stopped, but we were seeing Yuki Tsunoda's car was still stranded there on the right-hand side on the grass as they approached the final corner. The marshals nowhere near the car, Tsunoda out of the car, he's long gone. Already one aborted start to try and get that clear. Clearly the marshals unable to remove that car in time, and now as they line up on the grid expecting another aborted start, as they line up on the grid, and in the pit lane we have all of the mechanics running towards the end of the pits and to get back onto the grid. By the looks of things, as Verstappen told to switch off his engine, it's going to be probably another 5 minutes. That hasn't been confirmed by race control just yet on our screens, but Max Verstappen very much being told that by his engineer, Rosanna.
Yeah, absolutely. The mechanics are waiting patiently with trolleys and all the equipment that they need to help the cars reset for the next start. But some mechanics jumping over the wall with their sort of bits and pieces that they need, as I say, and I wonder if that's okay to do.
What a mess. Why they don't just remove the car?
I believe it is stuck in gear, so having a few issues.
So there we go, a little bit of an answer there that Sergio Perez is asking the question we all wanted to ask. Stuck in gear then for that AlphaTauri. And Joe, if it's stuck in gear, then they need to get it in neutral, don't they, if they want to move it?
Yeah, normally it's not a particularly hard thing to do. So Tsunoda's obviously jumped out. The car, we heard it just conk out on the way down to Parabolica. And you can either put it in neutral in theory from the cockpit, or the marshals actually have a button to put cars into neutral as well from the outside, so they can move it. But it's obviously not doing. And marshals in Formula One, especially at Monza, they know what they're doing. And what they're doing now is putting it on the back of a flatbed with Tsunoda in the passenger seat.
He's not driving it.
Nah, for a minute I had to check. He's not going to come back to 11th on the grid, is he? In the flatbed, but no, everyone waiting. There are a couple of Alfa Romeo mechanics that have clambered the wall, and now everyone else rushes out. The tyres obviously cooling without the blanket, so they want to get all the preparations done again. This is not ideal for Carlos Sainz. First pole position of the season, Ferrari home soil, all the pressure, you go through the preparation, and then you have this delay that's just changes things a little bit. We've lost a lap from the Grand Prix. It's now 52 laps. It'll be 51 by the time we go again.
Yeah, moving the car, then we will go for standing start.
We will do another formation lap, no?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, it's just slightly more complicated than he'd have liked.
Yeah, so basically, Rosanna, it's a little bit of a reset. We minus 2 laps off the Grand Prix once we get back underway, and as the rest of the mechanics now run onto the grid and try and get their heads around another formation lap, and then hopefully a proper standing start.
Yeah, and then we'll get the Italian Grand Prix underway. Yuki Tsunoda's car is now being driven round the track on that low loader, but there was a bit of a scramble and a bit of confusion. I think it was almost like a sort of town hall gathering. The security members that helped police the weekend here at the circuit with the marshals were talking to all the mechanics who I think were saying, let us on the grid, we need to go, because as you say, tyre temperature critical to manage. So everyone's run on, the cars have gone up on their jacks, tyre blankets are being put on, so a bit of a scramble, and as you say, you have to really reset now, and I imagine mentally it's a tricky reset as well, Jolien.
Yeah, you've got to just blank that out. The Grand Prix is going to start a little bit later. They're going to have 2 less laps of racing action, but of course they'll have done that at low speed with extra formation laps. And what about your brakes and tyres as well? They're not going to be changed now, so the tyres are locked in. That's why all the mechanics were desperate to get on and put the blankets back over them and get some temperature back up. So it's going to be even harder for those starting on the medium, but even harder for those on the hard, and that is Hamilton. And there are a couple of other drivers on the hard behind. Valtteri Bottas in 14th and Magnussen in 19th. But for those, that might just make things more complicated.
And umbrellas are going up over the cockpits of the cars to obviously protect the drivers. It's 30 degrees now. It was sort of going between 29 and 30. It is now 30 degrees, incredibly hot. Before they got into the cars, a lot of the drivers were wearing those sort of ice gilets, I'm going to call them, little waistcoats to try and keep cool. Of course, they come off, they jump in the car, and whilst we always think the drivers get super hot, of course there is airflow, so it kind of cools them down a bit. But sitting here stationary on the grid, that's going to really raise the body temperature, isn't it?
Yeah, the fans are straight on as well to Max Verstappen, blowing out cold air as George Russell enjoys the same from his Mercedes cockpit. So it's all about staying literally cool, calm and collected. And it's always Monza, isn't it, Jolene? Where things just, it always throws up a little bit of a spanner in the works, doesn't it? Whether that's in the race or right here, right now, pre-race.
Yeah, it's somehow often does. There's a huge crowd, passionate crowd here, and I mean, we've listed off the couple of recent races that have gone to the underdog. Ricciardo and Gasly both winning in midfield machinery. It's a very power-sensitive circuit with long straights. It's 5.5 kilometres the track, but really made up of 6 corners, a couple of chicanes, a couple of right-handers in the middle, one more faster chicane at Ascari, and then a quick right towards the end of the lap. And between that, long straight, so it puts the power units under extra stress, and that's probably why Tsunoda has had an issue with his AlphaTauri.
Crowd are going absolutely wild in the stands. They don't mind that they're not seeing the cars racing on track just yet. That will come, but for the moment they're enjoying the atmosphere that has been incredible over the last few days, I have to say. Because of these high temperatures, we're obviously focusing on the tyres, but we've just had a reliability issue for Yuki Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri. Do you think we're going to see more reliability issues then due to this hot weather, Julian?
I mean, generally is so strong reliability in modern F1. Every year the reliability seems to get better and better. But I mean, you never know. It is the temperature doesn't make it any easier. It's a little bit hotter. 51 laps of a Grand Prix. You never know, and that's the sort of thing Ferrari will be clinging to hope that something, a little bit of misfortune befools Max Verstappen in the Red Bull.
Yeah. Just the drivers sitting carefully, cautiously in the cockpit, having a quick chat with some engineers and mechanics working around the cars as well, just to check every fine detail as we prepare to go racing again. Well, we've seen it all. This year's thrown up so many different things. Whilst we don't have the deluge that we had in Zandvoort a week ago, now we're battling with 30-degree temperatures and an aborted start. It's all ingredients to make it even more special, isn't it, racing around Monza? And as you say, there's always something about this place. It's that Monza magic, isn't it?
It really is, isn't it? And well, since the summer break, really, it's all kicked off, hasn't it? It's only the second race back from the summer break. And I'm just having a look at Yuki Tsunoda's results. Of course, this will mean he gets a DNS, a do not start, and it will also be his first non-finish of the year as well for Yuki Tsunoda. So a shame for him in his AlphaTauri, as we saw him waving and smiling though to the fans as he was getting driven away in that flatbed truck. A bit of news to bring you though: the formation lap will start at 20 past local time, so in about 6 minutes time we will get this formation lap underway and get properly going with the Italian Grand Prix. But I mean, as Rosanna was saying, it's approaching 30 degrees air temperature, the track temperature 43 degrees as well, and the fans are certainly enjoying the heat with the Mexican waves in full force heading around the track. A couple of sad AlphaTauri fans, as Fernando Alonso. Jolene, did you used to do that before you started the race? Eyes shut, imagining the track in front of you, where you're going to make that overtake?
You think that's what Fernando's doing? He's not just having a little cat nap before the start of the race.
Might be that as well.
Well, it's actually just an awkward time for the drivers now. It's there's nothing to do. You've done all your briefings. You know exactly what you want to do at the first corner. Nothing's changed for those drivers in the top positions. I mean, Alonso technically doesn't have a driver starting just behind him now. He's 10th with no Tsunoda 11th, so things have got slightly easier for him. But yeah, you're just waiting around. You're just literally hanging around, strapped into the cockpit, slowly cooking. And you just want to stay cool and keep calm. But it's easier said than done when the atmosphere's there, the tension's building even more. You just want to get racing now.
Monza is obviously known for its high temperatures, but I mean, there are some tracks where you really don't want to be stuck sitting in your cockpit for too long. I mean, we got Singapore in a few weeks as well. That must have been pretty hot and hard to endure.
Yeah, Singapore's a tough race. It's a long race as well, so that will go the full 2 hours. This one...
Is that your worst one you've done, heat-wise?
It's at night, which definitely helps things a little bit, but I think just physicality of Singapore is tough. Malaysia, I drove... And that's also extremely tough. Monza's actually a doddle physically because you're spending so much time at full speed without the G-force on your car. It's also a very short Grand Prix. The distance, of course, is the same as all Grand Prix by Monaco, but you just complete it pretty quickly because the average speed is so high around this fast circuit. So this circuit actually physically is fine, but when you're sitting in the car now, just ready to go, this is when you start to feel the heat. You can't do anything. You start to feel a little bit claustrophobic as well in a seat that's fully molded to your body. Maybe loosen the seat belts a bit, get the fans over you and try and cool down. But that's the bit that I just didn't like. When you're going, it's fine.
So only a few minutes now until we get the formation lap underway, and the mechanics are starting to leave the grid with the bulkier bits of kit. Mechanics still around the cars, waiting with the tyre blankets, with the jacks, and all the trainers of the drivers, they've left the grid as well. So we are getting closer. 15:20 local time, so 20 past 2, we will get the formation lap underway. That's just under 4 minutes from now, and we can finally get this Grand Prix that's had so much expectation heaped on it underway. Can't believe it. It's kind of made it all the more exciting, I feel.
Now, do we believe in the Monza curse?
No.
No? And if you're unaware, there's not been a repeat winner here since 2018, Lewis Hamilton. That's the curse. Johnny's just doing some maths.
So that's 4 years.
Yeah, and now that's the max.
And you're 4 years and you're starting to call it the Monza curse?
Not me, the people.
Who is the people?
The people. The people out there, the people watching, the people listening. No? Was a firm no from Jolien.
Harry,
sure.
So that's since 2018.
Yeah.
So 2019, Leclerc won.
Yeah.
Jubilant Ferrari. 2020, that was the Gasly win.
Yeah.
2021, Daniel Ricciardo. Well, they're not going to repeat win it, are they? And then last year, Max Verstappen. Well, he might.
Well,
4 years doesn't make a curse. That's ridiculous. That's a nonsense. Let's get racing.
Well, we are just a few moments away from getting the formation lap underway. Rosanna, are you with me on this curse or not?
No, do you know what? I'm not. I think Julian's right. They've been such surprise winners, haven't they? Do you know what I like to think, though, of is the 1988 race here, which you spoke about earlier on in the show, when, of course, Ferrari stopped McLaren in their tracks of winning every single race that season. And I like the sort of fatalistic element of that because it was just a few weeks after Enzo Ferrari had died, and suddenly Ferrari won in Monza. So if there's a little bit of spirit here, maybe Enzo's spirit can get Charles and Carlos right to the front today and stay there.
Guys, we're getting very fatalistic here.
Gerhard Berger is here as well. Berger's in the Ferrari garage watching on. It could be fate.
Well, I like the stat. There was a stat that was broke. Look, all these stats, these curses, whatever, they're all there to be broken. Records go. But there was one at Barcelona had a different winner for nearly a decade. Now that I like. 4 years.
Maybe that's not enough.
A couple of fun races, a couple of wins from the favourites. Let's see. If something befalls Max Verstappen and he doesn't win today, then, Harry, I'll start to think there's something in it. But it's going to take something. It's going to take a Monza curse, I think, to stop him today.
As the tyre blankets slowly begin to be removed from all four wheels of all now 19 cars, which will be starting this Grand Prix, we have lost Yuki Tsunoda, what feels like ages ago now, on the initial formation lap. him reporting a power unit failure. He had to pull off on the run down to the final corner in Ascari, and then while we took a bit of time to remove that AlphaTauri, we had another aborted start, and then we stopped for a moment to reset, and now we are about to get what will hopefully be the third and final formation lap underway before we get started for this Italian Grand Prix.
Losing a couple of laps of the race will favour Ferrari, you'd have thought, if tyre degradation is higher, as fewer laps for them to keep their tyres in check. Should be still a fairly straightforward one stop, and will have only got easier with that. 51 laps now in the Grand Prix, and the green flag waves again.
Certainly does, as Carlos Sainz heads down towards turn one. He will start this race from pole, his first pole of 2023. Alongside, on the dirty side of the grid, will be Max Verstappen in the Red Bull, looking for his 10th consecutive race win. Charles Leclerc makes it a Ferrari 1-3 with George Russell in the Mercedes in 4th. Sergio Perez, encouraged on by his team principal Christian Horner to get into the fight for the podium from 5th, goes Perez in front of Albon in the Williams. Another star performance from the Thai driver. Oscar Piastri will go from 7th in the McLaren in front of Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes in 8th. Lando Norris in the 2nd McLaren is 9th, with Fernando Alonso getting his worst qualifying of the season for Aston Martin this year. Rounds out the top 10. There will be a gap where 11th spot is on the grid. There will be no Yuki Tsunoda. His teammate remains in the race. Liam Lawson, and only his 2nd Grand Prix start awaits him. Points are just within touching distance for the young Kiwi. Nico Hulkenberg in the Haas goes from 13th in front of the Alfa Romeo of Valtteri Bottas, as we celebrate Alfa Romeo, the anniversary of Giuseppe Farina winning the 1950 World Championship in an Alfa Romeo. It's been a tough weekend for them so far, though. Logan Sargent unable to find the pace to match his teammate, goes from 15th in his Williams in front of Zhou Guan Yu's Alfa Romeo. Pierre Gasly, the 2020 race winner here, goes from 17th in front of his Alpine teammate Esteban Ocon. And the final row, Kevin Magnussen in the Haas goes from 19th, and last Stroll, he missed FP1, fuel system issues in FP2, and just a general lack of pace for the Canadian, starts 20th and last.
And just like that, round they come again. Sainz leading them through the final corner, and we will hopefully get going this time around. Sainz on pole, crowd cheer. Finally, they're getting there. Verstappen right in behind him. I don't think this formation lap feels quite as quick as the last couple. He's had a lot of time to think about it. It's going to be all about keeping those tyres with temperature, particularly the rears. When you dump the clutch, trying to accelerate away 1,000 brake horsepower as efficiently as he can down to that first corner.
That's the voice of the former Renault F1 driver Jolyon Palmer, alongside myself, Harry Benjamin, and Rosanna Tennant down in the pits.
Yeah, one to watch out for off this start is Zhou Guan Yu. On the install laps, he was still complaining about anti-stall, something the team at Alfa Romeo have been struggling with during the practice sessions. Let's hope he can get away when we finally get the Italian Grand Prix going. Yeah,
he had that trouble in Hungary as well when we ran the alternative tyre allocation. He started well up in the top 10, so let's hope for a clean start from Zhou Guan Yu further down the field from 16th. But the Ferrari garage watch on with trepidation as Carlos Sainz lines up in that grid spot, and it will be a little bit of a wait as Max Verstappen slots in behind him, and now we get towards the rear end of the field, just waiting for the Alpine of Ocon, the Haas of Kevin Magnussen, and the Aston Martin of Lance Stroll to line up 20th and last in his grid spot. 19 cars on the grid, 19 drivers in this race, 51 laps ahead of us for this Italian Grand Prix. As the green flag flies at the back, it's all eyes to the lights and foot to the floor as we go racing in Monza, and it's a good start from our pole sitter Carlos Sainz, who immediately comes across to the right hand side to cut off Max Verstappen's a Red Bull. Leclerc in the Ferrari tries to slide down the inside of the Red Bull, but Verstappen holds second. Russell now challenging for third in the Mercedes as they head out through the second corner, and now approaching through the right-hander of Curva Grande. It's a fairly clean start. Sainz leads Verstappen as Leclerc and Russell go side by side into the Della Rosa chicane.
Top 5 are all as they were, side by side, though Leclerc holds on in third ahead of George Russell. They were side by side as well through the second corner, and Leclerc held there. Sainz just about chopped off the front of Verstappen into turn 1 as well. The highest move is from the two McLarens, actually. Piastri ahead of Albon now, he's up to 6th, and Norris past Hamilton on those hard tyres for Lewis Hamilton. So Norris on the mediums up to 8.
Yeah, Ocon falling back slightly as well, further back through the field. Albon too, further up through the field after after a great qualifying in the Williams, now finds himself in a McLaren sandwich, but Sainz did what he needed to do at the start as they come through the Ascari chicane and now try and weave left and right to break the toe, but Verstappen not close enough as they come into the final corner. One more corner to go before we complete lap 1.
It was a very, very even start from all of the top three. Thought the Ferraris might be trying to pincer out Verstappen, but actually Max got a really good second phase at the start and only just didn't have an overlap on Carlos Sainz as the Spaniard chopped across at the start to cover the inside for the first corner. So the perfect job done from Sainz at the end of lap 1. The bad news is his teammate didn't follow him through, and that would have been Ferrari's best chance of keeping Verstappen at bay, to somehow hold a 1-2 and just work strategically together. But that didn't happen. Verstappen is second.
This is the sound of Esteban Ocon on the inside of Curva Grande next to the McLaren as he tries to go late onto the brakes into the De La Roja chicane, round the outside. That becomes the inside and he makes his way back through on Oscar Piastri. Albon then gets himself up into 6th. On lap 2 then it's Sainz who leads by now a second from Verstappen, Leclerc, Russell, Perez the top 5, Albon, Piastri, Norris, Hamilton, Hülkenberg the top 10, Alonso, Lawson, Sargent, Bottas, Zhou the top 15, Ocon, Gasly, Magnussen and Stroll, the 19 drivers in this race.
That Williams is quick in a straight line. They have been the fastest in the first sector all weekend, and that really shows. That's a big move for Albon. They're back into 6th. That's where he started, so they've just reversed that from the end of lap 1, and that might frustrate McLaren now, having both of their drivers behind a Williams who presumably won't go with the Red Bulls, the Ferraris and George Russell ahead, but he's got good straight line speed and he'll be difficult to pass.
You just heard the sound of Lewis Hamilton there, a little bit struggling to turn that Mercedes into the right-hander at the Parabolica. He's lost a place down to 9th. Hülkenberg gaining further back, getting himself up into the top 10, and Alonso falls out of the points in 11th. Lawson holding strong in only a second Grand Prix. He's still where he started in 12th, as it's Concertina's further back in the pack. The two Alpines still struggling towards the rear end as we get another look at the start, Jolien.
Yeah, so Sainz got away fairly decently and then knew what he had to do, come straight across to the right-hand side as they're just accelerating away, and had he not come across as soon as he did, I think Verstappen might have had an overlap and denied him the chance to close the inside line down. As it was, he managed to do it perfectly. Russell then tried to go around Leclerc on the first corner. Leclerc was also on the inside following his teammate, got a little bit punched in, but managed to stretch his legs around the outside of turn 2. So status quo in the top 4. This is the sound of Max Verstappen. Very, very close, almost side by side with Carlos Sainz on the run down to turn 1, but you are not going to go around the outside at that first corner. There's no way Sainz would have allowed that.
It was all fairly neat and tidy towards the back as well. Lawson initially not getting a great launch, getting swallowed by an Alpine and a Williams further back in the pack. This is the sound of Pierre Gasly's Alpine, who's just watching on as he comes into the braking zone for turn 1. Little bit of space to his right, slight wheel-to-wheel contact with the Alpine teammate. So Gasly and Ocon having a little bit of a touch, but no damage done. They're 16th and 17th at the moment as we cross the checkered flag to start lap number 4 of 51. DRS is enabled as Max Verstappen sets the fastest lap.
Here he comes. He's within half a second of Sainz. Sainz is going to have to start looking in the mirrors soon as they come through Curva Grande. Verstappen not close enough now.
Well, after several aborted starts, we are back underway here in Monza, lap 4 of 51. Carlos Sainz leads after starting from pole in the Ferrari, but Max Verstappen is now closing on him, just half a second between them. So out through the second Lesmo then, and Sainz leads Verstappen, leads Leclerc, Russell holding on in 4th. Perez is 8.5 tenths or so back from Russell in 5th, needs to start closing up to get himself in the fight for the podium, as Christian Horner, his team principal, urged him to do, as through the left hand and then the right hander of Ascari, Sainz emerges.
He's already sliding a bit, so all okay.
Understood, Max, just be sensible for the moment.
Leclerc just behind Verstappen had a big snap coming through Ascari on that lap. Verstappen is looking menacing, 6 tenths away from the back of Carlos Sainz. Sainz has got to keep his tyres in check, but it's easier said than done when you've got a Red Bull, the championship leader, bearing down on you.
DRS, the drag reduction system, is activated. The slot in the rear wing opens up for Max Verstappen and then shuts under braking. He's managed to close up a little bit into the braking zone in front, Carlos Sainz. Half a second still remains. Verstappen not quite close enough on that occasion, but he is closing and closing quickly.
I think the Sainz and Ferrari's best chance, if they have a chance today, is just to save those tyres, go actually fairly steadily through the corners, particularly in the middle sector. The Lesmos, don't lean on them at all. Nurse the tyres where you can. Back Verstappen up. You're never going to stretch away from him. They don't have the pace to actually break away from Verstappen, so you might as well bunch him up, save your tyres, and keep something in the locker. That's the only thing they can do. That'll keep Leclerc in play as well, just within a second of Verstappen, and he's just about there right now. He's literally a second down on Verstappen, so he doesn't want to fall out of contention. I think this is going to be the lap though. Verstappen 3/10 down as he hits the brakes for Ascari.
Into the approach through Ascari they go, and already out of it onto the back straight, approaching the Alboreto curve. This is the sound of the reigning champion, the two-time champion Max Verstappen, looking to take his 10th consecutive Formula One race win here in Monza and break all the records, and he is closing on Carlos Sainz, who has been fast all weekend long, did a wonderful job in qualifying to steal pole by less than half a tenth. But now with DRS open for Verstappen, Sainz moves to the inside of turn 1, tries to cover that line off. Verstappen will have to go round the outside. Sainz doesn't budge and forces him onto the curb. Verstappen has to bail out of it. Sainz is getting his elbows out.
Yeah, that was nice from Carlos Sainz. He really did defend Verstappen. He fought it really hard. He didn't need to do that, actually. He could have had an easy pass up towards the second chicane, but maybe thought he'd have a little bit of fun or what. Try to go for something a little bit more audacious around the outside at the first corner. This is the sound of the onboard of Verstappen trying to do that. He got fairly well to the outside, but not enough. Sainz covered it off, and that meant he didn't have the run through the chicane either.
Was it naughty?
Not really. It was fair racing, Max.
Palmer's had his say, and Verstappen, well, he's come a cropper there a few times. A couple of years ago with Lewis Hamilton. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, he didn't try the same move though, did he? He didn't try sticking it down the inside of turn 2. He's going to wait for a better chance this time. It was a very similar position he found himself in, a little bit behind through 1. 2021, he launched it in at turn 2. Ended up with Hamilton in a tangle.
Good move.
Ferrari agreed with you, Palmer. Good move.
We like to see this sort of racing. I think Verstappen was just chancing his arm. He knows we're on lap 5 of 51. He has got a car that, quite frankly, is in a different class to the two Ferraris. He's going to get him at some point. He thought he'd try and do it in an elaborate way around the outside, and a little bit naughty, but no major drama. I don't think Max is too flustered in the Red Bull, but he has got Leclerc joining him for company. He's going to have to wait another lap 7, and Verstappen still is not in the lead of the race.
Yeah, lap 7 of 51. Sainz leads Verstappen, Leclerc, Russell, Perez, the top 5. Russell and Perez are fairly close. There's a battle developing there too. Albon is in 6th in the Williams ahead of the two McLarens, Piastri and Norris. Hamilton and Hulkenberg rounding out the top 10, looking for a point for the Haas driver. Alonso outside of the points in the Aston Martin 11th, ahead of Lawson, Sargent, Bottas and Zhou, the top 15. Ocon, Gasly, Stroll and Magnussen make up the 19 drivers in this field, with Yuki Tsunoda not able to start this race after pulling off on the formation lap with a failure of some kind in his AlphaTauri.
Interesting, Perez not able to make such a big impression on the back of George Russell, who's still running there in 4th. Perez has the DRS as well. Both Red Bulls are looking fairly quick, but it's Verstappen all over the back of Sainz, half a second down through Ascari once again. I think he'll have another run into the first corner on the next lap. Sainz moves towards the outside, preparing the racing line for the final corner. Verstappen right in his wheel tracks, and behind Perez still 5th. Getting a little bit closer to Russell now, though.
Ferrari taking it all in and enjoying this moment as Ferrari lead the Italian Grand Prix with Carlos Sainz, Charles Leclerc in 3rd, just tucked up behind Max Verstappen, who has DRS once again for Sainz in the run down to turn 1, but he's not close enough on this occasion. But further back, the fight for 4th is lighting up, with Russell having to defend quite hard this time from Sergio Perez. Russell taking the inside line through the first chicane. Perez now up through the gears, through the right-hander of Curva Grande, looking to make a move for 4th.
Yeah, nothing doing for Perez, with Russell defending at the first chicane, but he's right in the wheel tracks again. Russell doesn't defend the second chicane and hangs on as well for another lap. A little bit sliding through the first part of the second chicane there, but Perez will not have a chance to pass in the Lesmos, and probably not Ascari as well, so he'll be frustrated for another lap. And a little bit sideways from Perez there as he squeeze the power on coming through the exit of Les Mis 1. So all the drivers fighting, the temperature's high, the rear tyres probably starting to feel a little bit now. But Verstappen, oh, he's right on the tail of Sainz once again.
I think he'll be lining up once again for another move, but he hasn't been able to make it work just yet. Further back in the pack, Hülkenberg has now succumbed to Fernando Alonso's attack. Alonso in the Aston Martin up into 10th, Hülkenberg now in 11th. But this is the sound of Max Verstappen once again down through the gears into the right-hander of the Parabolica, immediately on the throttle, foot to the floor, up through the gears. The DRS line will come imminently, the rear wing will fly open, and once again he's going to try and use the DRS plus a little bit of slipstream to try and take the lead away from Carlos Sainz Ferrari, who moves to the middle of the track. That means Verstappen takes a little bit of a wider entry into turn 1, a bit better traction coming out on exit, but he's still not close enough coming through Curva Grande.
He didn't gain quite as much on the start-finish line there as he did the previous lap. He's so close starting it.
And George suggests more management 6, turn 6.
Sass from George Russell back. Yeah, he's got Perez to deal with, and that's what he's saying. Turn 6 there, that's Lesmo 1, and that's where Perez had a big snap of oversteer as well. And Russell being told, just be careful on those tyres, you're going to overheat them. We know that the Red Bull is good at extending tyre life, and that's what Mercedes are worried about. Right now, 4th for Russell. He's running pretty nicely.
Max Verstappen has a little look down the inside of Carlos Sainz as they come into Ascari. No way through there, not close enough, so he'll have to wait for another dose of DRS and a bit of slipstream down the main straight as they head towards the final corner. Verstappen seems a little bit closer this time around as they apply the brakes, a touch of them, carry the speed through the right-hander of the Parabolica, the gravel to your left.
Mode 8.
And is that Verstappen sounding a little bit frustrated for the first time as he has DRS, has a little look down the inside of Sainz, but Sainz doesn't even bother defending on that occasion. He takes the racing line through turns 1 and 2, and Leclerc in the second Ferrari is right there with them as well.
Yeah, for the first time, Verstappen sounding slightly concerned about the Ferraris.
He's struggling with the rear, Max, a lot.
So are they just going to try and encourage Verstappen, if he's not thinking of it already, to just bide his time? Sainz's tyres will fall off quicker than yours.
Most likely they will, but Verstappen being tucked in the dirty air is not protecting his tyres either, trying to pass all the time. Sainz cannot make a mistake on any of these corners because he's got Verstappen barely more than half a second ever behind the race leader. So Sainz is under huge pressure, but so far he's doing what he needs to do. He's saving the tyres where he can, backing himself into Verstappen actually slightly, and then he's quick through those final couple of corners. He's getting good exits at the final corner, and Verstappen isn't able to make another big challenge yet into the first corner, but it does feel like a matter of time still. It feels almost like an old school F3 race around this circuit. No one able to get away. The slipstream is effective, the DRS is effective as well, even on a reduced downforce setting. And Sainz cannot shake off second place man Verstappen.
Leclerc in third has fallen back a little bit on this occasion to Verstappen in second. I don't think Leclerc will get the DRS. Verstappen still very much will. His teammate is still battling with George Russell for fourth. Russell in the Mercedes moves to the inside. Perez will have the outside line, but Russell holds firm. Perez takes the up and under, tries to get quicker onto the throttle. More traction for the Red Bull, but Russell has him covered.
Perez will have another chance into the second chicane here. Russell on the right-hand side coming through Curva Grande. Does he have to defend it? He sticks to the middle of the road, and actually Perez cannot have another run at the Mercedes in fourth place. So still, the Red Bulls yet to scythe their way through the field. It's interesting because Red Bull, we're so used to them having this enormous top speed, but the DRS effect is way less here because everyone's trimmed their downforce out anyway, so the rear wings are skinny. Normally you have thick rear wings and the flap in them, therefore when you open it gives you a huge benefit. Here we're not seeing that, and Red Bull for the first time in yonks don't have an enormous max speed that they want to go to, and they're not finding their way through as easily as we might expect, but they're still there, and Verstappen's just 4 tenths down on Sainz, once again coming into Parabolica.
Yeah, he'll have another chance there with more DRS. Less than half a second between Sainz and Verstappen, once more for the lead. Leclerc third, Russell fourth, Perez fifth. Nice battle developing and ongoing there too. Albon, Piastri, Norris, Hamilton and Alonso round out the top 10. Verstappen with DRS closes up. It's same old story once again, but he is not close enough to make a move. George Russell for fourth moves to the inside, then comes across onto Perez's line, who takes the outside line, the racing line, into turn one. Russell playing hard, playing firm with Perez for fourth at the moment, and that battle shaping up nicely. Sainz still leads though on lap 12, Rosanna.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got one driver out, one driver who has pitted, and now we've got a second driver coming into the pits. Pierre Gasly was the first to blink, switching from the medium onto the hard tyres, and now Zhou Guanyu in the Alfa Romeo is coming in as well. Slow stop for Pierre Gasly though, so more disappointment for the Alpine team this weekend.
Yeah, we're just getting another look at that Alpine stop as well. They struggled to get the front up, didn't they, Jolien? 5.9 second stop.
Yeah, front jack wasn't working. So Gasly, I mean, it's already been a pretty bad weekend from them, both starting in the bottom 5 and not getting any better now.
And this is the sound of the Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso from a few laps ago, with DRS getting down the inside of Nico Hülkenberg into turn one to take 10th spot away from the German Haas driver. But Fernando Alonso not able to make too many gains on Lewis Hamilton, who is in front of him on the hard compound of tyre. Alonso 3.9 seconds back from Hamilton in 9th at the moment, who's with the two McLarens in front of him. But here we go again then. Sainz and Verstappen battling into turn one. Verstappen closes up but doesn't make a move. Our eyes go to George Russell and Sergio Perez for 4th and 5th, and it's the same scenario. Perez doesn't try a move on that occasion, just closes up and tries to think about having another go further round the lap as they make their way towards the right-hander of Curva Grande.
Perez certainly closer to making the move.
Undercut will be very powerful, I think.
Copy that, George.
Russell saying that the degradation then is coming up. They're losing the grip on the medium tyres that all of the top 8 are running on, and that means when you pit for a new set, you gain a load of grip. You can find a time by pitting earlier. So that's what Ferrari are going to be careful of. Mercedes as well, with Russell to defend position from the two Red Bulls. Strategy's going to come into this. And full credit for Ferrari for making this a race. This is closer than I think anyone expected. Sainz 13 laps in, still leading. And Verstappen, I mean, he's right there, 3 tenths away from Sainz through Ascari. He's a little bit closer this time than he has been for the last few laps, so he might make Sainz defend into the first corner again. Still in the slipstream, heading down towards the final corner. He's so close. You can smell the fumes coming out of the back of the Ferrari ahead. This is going to be a chance once again for Verstappen.
This is the longest and best fight we've seen for the lead of a Grand Prix so far in 2023. This is the sound of Max Verstappen up into 8th gear, down the main straight, DRS open. He does force Sainz to defend this time around to the inside for the Ferrari of Sainz. He hits the curb on the apex of turn 1, makes it through into turn 2, while Russell and Perez both do battle. Perez locks up, has to go wide. Russell cuts the chicane as well, and they both cut the chicane, but Perez emerges in front.
Yeah, I think Perez may have to give that place up, but because they both cut it, it's not a straightforward one. Perez was on the outside and Russell on the inside, and he has given the place up. So sensible from Sergio Perez not to try and hold it by going offline, and he will try and fight again.
He pushed me off.
He didn't, that's the thing. It was just that they were both in so hot, and Perez, I mean, Russell would have pushed him off if Perez wasn't just going off anyway by braking so late. They pushed each other off just by forcing the issue on the brakes, but Perez was actually nowhere near making that under his own steam, so I think that's why he has just given the place up after a minor protest on the radio.
Yeah, and we're just having a little look at it as well. Front left lock up for Sergio Perez, but they both run wide in that battle for 4th. Okay, so we think strategy is going to really come into play for this, because Leclerc in 3rd is still there or thereabouts, 1.2 seconds back now from Sainz as they come across the line once again for lap 15, and this time Verstappen looks ominously close, more close than he has done in the last few laps. 0.3 of a second coming down by the second. DRS open, he has a little look down the inside, tries to force Sainz into a mistake. Sainz locks up the front right through turn 1 and 2. Little lock up for Verstappen as well. Verstappen is practically pushing Sainz out of the corner as they go side by side through the right-hander of Curva Grande. Verstappen on the outside, Sainz on the inside, but Sainz is coming back at Verstappen. Verstappen will have the inside though, into turn 4, down the inside, late on the brakes for the Dutchman, and Verstappen on lap 15 takes the lead of the Italian Grand Prix. Sainz down to second.
And the pressure told, 15 laps in and Verstappen takes the lead. That was immense pressure that Carlos Sainz soaked up. But actually, little lock-up when he had the inside covered there. Maybe just looking in his mirror so much into the first corner distracted him, and that was the chance that Verstappen needed. Sainz a little bit late on the way into the first corner with that lock-up, out of position for the exit, and Verstappen getting the up and under on the exit, through into the lead side by side, but Verstappen had the inside for the second chicane. So the Red Bull leads out front. That might be that, because I think he's got so much pace. The Ferrari's still second and third, but they're being helped out by Russell in fourth.
I'm just a lot quicker. I was beginning to pick up the pace. Okay, Lando, we're looking at that.
So that's Lando Norris on the radio. He's down in 8th, battling with his teammate Piastri in 7th. Across the line then for lap 16 of 51. And while, Verstappen has taken the lead, his teammate Sergio Perez with DRS finally gets the inside line down into turn 1 on George Russell, makes the move cleanly, and on the exit, Perez gets the job done, moves his Red Bull up into 4th, Russell down to 5th.
And now the Red Bulls are starting to move forward then. Russell, he actually had been giving a little bit of space to the inside. He'd been sort of hovering towards the inside third of the track, but this time Perez just committed to it, stayed right pinned to the inside. Then the grass begins and he managed to get himself on a bit of space on the inside of the track. And finally, George Russell manages to, he did well, 15 laps ahead of Perez, but this time could manage no more to keep the second Red Bull behind. So it's Red Bull out front, then the two Ferraris, then a Red Bull now will charge down and try and pass them for the fight for second. Verstappen surely will disappear now.
Could Ferrari maybe have tried something a lap earlier? We were talking about the undercut. Leclerc was still within range. Could they have maybe called Leclerc in and tried to jolt Red Bull into doing something with Verstappen?
Don't think anything would work, really. I don't think Red Bull would be too worried. It's very early to make a pit stop. There's still 35 laps to go in the Grand Prix, and so Verstappen would just stay out long and be very quick when he pits. I think it's too early, really, for them to do anything. Can they do anything now? Verstappen's already a second and a half clear of Carlos Sainz, who's got his teammate just half a second back. So now we've got an intra-team battle between the two Ferraris for second place. Leclerc right on the tail of Sainz. He's putting pressure on his teammate, and that's the next bit of racing then. Russell still within a second of Perez. He might be dragged into this fight as well. So we're going to bunch up for second.
Yeah, how quickly can Perez close up on the two Ferraris? Can Leclerc battle for second with his teammate Sainz? And Verstappen, well, now over 1.5 seconds clear out in the lead, Rosanna.
Yeah, more action in the pit lane. Alex Albon in the Williams, the first of the top 10 drivers to pit, taking the hard tyre, switching off that medium tyre. Not the speediest of stops, a solid one at 3 seconds, but it's going to be interesting to see how this undercut performs. He's the first one of the top 10, as I say, to pit. Let's see where he can work his way up to on that new hard tyre.
I think Sainz just had a little bit of a moment on the exit of the second Lesmo, Jolien, as Charles Leclerc with DRS applies the pressure for second.
Sainz is ragged. He's made the mistake to allow Verstappen through, and another little mistake sliding wide at the second Lesmo, and Leclerc's going to have a run at his teammate soon. We jump on board with the monogas driver in third, staring at the back of his teammate. The Ferrari is good on the straights, but this is Ferrari v Ferrari. Leclerc will have DRS, and he might seek a bit of team orders before long, because now it does look like he's a little bit quicker. Will Ferrari allow that, or will they say to Sainz, you're on pole, keep the place?
I think Carlos is taking it with the rears.
Understood.
AKA, I'm quicker, let me through.
Perez was 7/10 quicker than Sainz on the last lap. These Ferraris are backing themselves in to Sergio Perez, and that'll be the fight soon. Sainz was 1 second slower than Verstappen on the last lap, so all that fighting was decent out front, kept us entertained for 15 laps, but now they're not looking so strong in race conditions. We know they're hard on their tyres, and Carlos Sainz is definitely struggling. Leclerc half a second back, Perez 2.5 seconds back, will quickly join the action at this rate.
And Sainz confirms, though, what Leclerc is saying about his own tyres. They are finished, according to Carlos Sainz, as he comes out of the second Lesmo. Doesn't have a big moment at this time around, but as Leclerc looks for his 4th podium of the season, Carlos Sainz looking for his 1st podium of the season. Still the highest driver in the driver standings, yet to score a podium as they come into Ascari. Leclerc ever so close to Sainz.
Yeah, Sainz is actually, this is not a home run for a podium even for the Spaniard now. He's got his teammate just behind. Perez is really clawing them back as well, and Leclerc just 4 tenths down. He's playing the Max Verstappen role, filling Sainz's mirrors at the end of lap 18. And this is Sainz in race pace. He's just not quite as strong. He's had a couple of chances of a podium, but in the end hasn't made it so far this year. His teammate has made it 3 times, and he's looking like the quicker Ferrari right now. But with DRS, Leclerc not able to make a move into the first corner. He's so close, but yet so far.
Perez now just 2 seconds behind in 4th. Verstappen leads Sainz, leads Leclerc on lap 19 of 51 of the Italian Grand Prix. Perez, Russell, the top 5. Piastri, Norris, Hamilton, Alonso and Bottas now up into the top 10 in his Alfa Romeo after a couple of pit stops further down the field. Ocon, Stroll, Albon, Lawson and Zhou, the top 15. Sargent, Hulkenberg, Gasly and Magnussen, the last of the 19 drivers that started this race.
Verstappen 1.3 seconds quicker than Sainz on the last lap. This is back to Red Bull level of impressive from Max Verstappen.
The dreaming is over. 1988 not happening at the moment. Now 4.5 seconds up the road for Max Verstappen. Has Sainz, you say race pace, has struggled a little bit compared to Leclerc, but has he done more damage to his tyres by staying out in front than Leclerc has? He was just able to kind of nick in behind Verstappen and just manage a little bit more.
Well, Leclerc had dirty air as well, which in theory is worse for your tyres. Sainz had a Red Bull on his tail, which is also not great for the tyres. And now Ferrari are getting ready. It's going to be Carlos Sainz pitting. And I think they've got to split the strategies right now. Sainz does peel off into the pit lane. Charles Leclerc blasts past and will take second place. And behind, it looks like George Russell pitting as well from 5th place in the Mercedes. So that might jolt Leclerc and Perez into the pits as well on the next lap, because Russell was in a handy enough position.
Front right was a little bit slow going on to the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz, but it actually meant they didn't have to wait while George Russell's Mercedes trundled by. Quicker pit stop for Russell, 2.6 seconds. Sainz out, back onto the track, 3.3 seconds for him, and he should come out just in front of, behind Valtteri Bottas in 9th.
Well, Russell was saying the undercut's powerful, and now he's got a chance to show us all how powerful it is. He's pitted. We're riding on board with Sergio Perez coming through Lesmo 1, and he's right on the tail of Charles Leclerc now. So this is for a Red Bull 1-2. If Perez can pass the remaining Ferrari that hasn't pitted, what does Leclerc do? Do they pit, or do they try and go a little bit longer? Surely Leclerc's got to pit now and cover off the threat of George Russell, because they don't want to lose that track position. And what about Perez? The Red Bulls are still flying out there. Do they try and go long? Seems like Verstappen's going to pit from the race lead.
Perez already half a second now behind Leclerc. He's really closed that gap down, and he is right on the tail of the Monegasque, who has just been told to box. That means to come into the pit lane to change onto some fresher rubber. So as they come through the final right-hander, the Ferrari of Leclerc peels off to the right-hand side and into the pit lane as Max Verstappen also comes in front of him, and he just about gets out Verstappen in front of the Ferrari of Leclerc. 2.5 second stop for Verstappen. What's it for Charles Leclerc? 2.3.
Good stop from Ferrari, really strong for him. It was a second quicker than they managed to service Sainz's car the lap before, and will that keep him out ahead of George Russell? It should do, I think, but Russell had done a decent outlap. Sainz is going to blast past, surely, at top speed as they head to the first corner. It's very, very close, though.
It's side by side with the Ferrari. Sainz will have the benefit of tyres that are more up to temperature and round the outside. Sainz manages to get through on Charles Leclerc, but they were toe-to-toe through the first chicane. But Leclerc traditionally has stronger race pace overall, and he's coming back through Curva Grande at Sainz, who takes the inside line to defend, forces his teammate Leclerc almost onto the grass on the outside. Leclerc has to tuck back in behind as they head through the first Lesmo.
Yeah, aggressive from Sainz, but he got the job done there, keeping his teammate behind. So Perez leads the Grand Prix. Piastri, Norris and Hamilton, 2nd, 3rd and 4th, with Alonso in 5th. They've not pitted. Then you've got Verstappen with these two Ferraris in a net first, second and third, but Perez will be the wild card going long. He might get a chance to overcut with these Ferraris squabbling around as well. Russell is still 2 seconds back from the two Ferraris, so didn't do enough with that undercut. In comes the race leader, Sergio Perez.
And he comes then with an 11.5 second gap to second on the road at the moment, Oscar Piastri, but the two McLarens are yet to pit, so that is why they have risen up through the order. 2.3 second stop for Perez, nice and tidy, with race control investigating the turn 2 incident between Russell and Ocon, noted, leaving the track and gaining an advantage.
This is going to be tight. Perez, 2.3 second stop. He's going to emerge as the Ferraris are racing each other, head down to the first corner.
Leclerc moves to the inside, then the outside. DRS slams shut. Sainz in front, clouts the curb on the inside apex, but Sainz holds on for now in front of Leclerc as Perez has to slot in behind, but he's so close to both of them now. Once he gets his tyres up to temperature on that hard compound of tyre, should be able to get himself right in this fight with the two Ferraris.
Now, logic would say the Ferraris have got to swap the positions of Sainz and Leclerc. Leclerc is definitely quicker right now. They're back into net second and third. They've got Perez fourth, and they've got Russell in a net fifth. Still, we're waiting for pit stops for Piastri, Norris and Hamilton. Alonso came in on the last lap, so Verstappen is back to fourth, just behind two Brits and an Aussie out front in the race, and Hamilton is right with the two McLarens on the hard tyre. He will go longer in this race and pit late and be on a late charge, but he'll be too far back to fight, surely, for those top five that got away in the early laps as Albon held the rest of the pack behind in the Williams.
And despite Lando Norris's requests on the radio to get in front of Oscar Piastri, it's Norris who peels into the pits first. Piastri then heads over the line on lap 23 as the leader of this race as Norris comes in the McLaren.
So that's an undercut for McLaren. Norris should get ahead of Piastri, and they've done it in the pit lane finally. He's been trailing his teammate within a second for a long time, and finally pits. So it's Piastri from Hamilton and then Verstappen. The two Ferraris still nose to tail. Sainz still just ahead of Leclerc, and they've got Perez properly for company now. Perez within a second, three of them fighting for what will become two podium spots.
Absolutely. Through Curva Grande they go. Carlos Sainz with the fastest lap at the moment as Verstappen approaches and is technically in the net lead of this race, but Piastri leads on the road, awaiting a pit stop from him and Hamilton. Then comes Verstappen, so Verstappen will have quite quickly close up on Hamilton and dispatch him on the track. Then comes Sainz in fourth, still ahead of his teammate Leclerc as they come through the second Lesmo, and the sun glints down on the Ferraris on home soil as they pass through the packed grandstands under the tunnel. Leclerc fifth, Perez right with him as well in sixth.
Sainz with the fastest lap of the race on the last lap. He got through his tyres pretty quickly in the first stint, and he's probably having to do the same in the second stint.
And that was the sound of George Russell coming out of the pit lane and not able to get it turned in. Broke a little bit late, and he was going toe-to-toe with the Alpine of Esteban Ocon, locked up the front right and then bailed out of it and cut the chicane.
Yeah, that's under investigation. That was the George Russell Esteban Ocon moment, and technically he passed Ocon. That was for position as Russell came out of the pits. He passed him off the track. I think that's going to be a really sloppy and hard to take 5-second penalty for George Russell. Can't argue with it. He passed the guy off the track, even if they're in different fights. In reality, Ocon, who started way down the order, is 10th and hasn't pitted. That is, I think Russell's had to give that position back. He didn't make the pass legitimately.
Yeah, and if he has to give that position back, well, Bottas and Albon are going to have to scoot through as well. Piastri comes out of the pit lane, goes side by side with his teammate Lando Norris, and there's slight contact at right rear and front left. Piastri has to settle behind his teammate Lando Norris, who gets in front of his rookie teammate.
That was more than slight contact, as Russell's penalty is confirmed for that move on Ocon. That looked like more than slight contact between the two McLarens. Norris had the undercut. McLaren gave him that opportunity because he's been following his rookie teammate for a long time. Piastri then tried to fight back, laid on the brakes in the first corner and just bundled into the side pod of his teammate. I think they got away with that.
Lap 24, make that 25 of 51. And Verstappen is just about to retake the lead. He removes Lewis Hamilton, who is yet to stop, but the dream is over for Ferrari. Sainz wasn't able to keep Verstappen behind, and eventually the Dutchman got through and now leads this race. The two Ferraris still doing battle, though, for podium positions. Okay, Verstappen then dispatches of a slower Lewis Hamilton, who is out on that hard compound of tyre and has yet to pit. So Verstappen regains the lead of this race in front of Hamilton. Sainz, Leclerc and Perez the top 5. Russell, Bottas, Albon, Norris, Piastri the top 10. Alonso, Lawson, Zhou, Sargent, Hulkenberg the top 15. Then comes Gasly, Ocon, who's just come into the pits. And then Stroll and Magnussen, the 19 drivers in this race.
And Norris and Piastri are actually under investigation now for that touch between those two McLarens. I tend to think the fact that they both continue without any damage, a little bit of a touch. Let's just crack on with it. But the stewards want to have a look. If you had to blame someone, you blame Piastri, but they're running 9th and 10th. They've swapped places. I'd say get on with that. No one will be feeling too aggrieved. I don't think there's damage on the cars. Norris has just done a personal best on the last lap, and Piastri's front wing looked intact still.
And 5 seconds for Russell, fair enough?
You can't argue with it. Yeah. You can't argue with it. And actually, it's a little bit sloppy from George. Perez is going to pass Leclerc, surely on this time. He's 3 tenths down coming out of the Parabolica. This is going to be a big chance.
Sainz has managed to escape up the road a little bit. That leaves Leclerc vulnerable to Sergio Perez. They both get the benefit of DRS though. Leclerc moves to the middle of the road. Perez sticks to the inside, then swaps over to the outside at the last minute as they approach the first chicane. Bump over the curb, but Leclerc holds on for now.
And that was with the benefit of having the DRS following his teammate. So this is what Perez has got to contend with now. And this is why I thought at the start of the race, the only thing that Ferrari could do to keep Max Verstappen at bay was have a 1-2 and then have the second driver defend with the help of DRS from the first driver. And Leclerc without DRS would have been eaten alive by Perez there on the main straight. But with DRS, he had enough straight line speed to be okay. It was sort of front left tyre to rear right tyre between the two McLarens. And
they kind of interlocked, didn't they, briefly?
Yeah, so the contact, I think, was actually rubber to rubber, which is maybe why there was no carbon fibre coming off, because there might have been no carbon fibre involved at that point in the cars, which is just a bit of luck there from the two McLarens who had a collision, but is under investigation. We will see what the stewards make of it. Piastri technically at fault, but maybe they'll say play on because no one's really come out of it any worse off.
The McLaren CEO, Zach Brown, watches on, but not giving too much away with his facial expression. The McLarens of Norris and Piastri, 8th and 9th in this race at the moment. We are focusing on the battle for 3rd as it is on the road. That should become 2nd because Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes currently occupies 2nd, but he's been running long on this hard compound of tyres since the start of the race. He has yet to pit. Sainz, Leclerc and Perez embroiled in a wonderful battle at the moment, which has just eased off slightly as they come through the right-hander of Curva Grande. I wonder if catching Lewis Hamilton in 2nd, as they all are, might prove a little bit of a spanner in the works for Sainz, Leclerc or Perez.
Well, it will help give Sainz the DRS as well to pass Hamilton, who's out there going a fair bit slower, having not pitted. He started on the hard tyre, he's still on the hard tyre on lap 27. I think he's surely just hanging it out now, hoping for a safety car or some intervention to make a late pit stop and be a factor later on. But he's got 3 fast cars coming up behind him, and Sainz with DRS in towards Ascari. He's going to make the move immediately.
He does. He wanted to get that through and done before Leclerc was able to take advantage as well. And through Ascari, Sainz emerges ahead of Hamilton, and now Leclerc gets right up into the rear of Lewis Hamilton, then moves to the inside on the long drag down to the final corner. Leclerc later on the brakes makes the move stick. Leclerc up into 3rd behind his teammate Sainz, and Perez should get the deal done down the main straight with Hamilton peeling off into the pits.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that could have been a chance for Perez there, with Leclerc side by side with Hamilton into Parabolica, but he managed to be on the inside into the corner and still get good drive through. So I don't think Perez will have a run this time around. Hamilton comes in, decent stop from Mercedes, out he goes. So the safety car didn't come for him, but he will nonetheless be on a quick medium to the end of the race. Just 23 laps to go. It's flying by.
It really is, isn't it? 2.8 second stop for Lewis Hamilton. Rosanna Tennant.
Yeah, we've just heard that there's no further investigation with the McLaren incident between Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. As you say, it was more rubber to rubber, so no penalties applied there, and they sit P7 Lando Norris ahead of Oscar Piastri P8. Is this the moment, perhaps, that these teammates start to have a little bit of beef between them? It's all been pretty civil so far this season, hasn't it?
Yeah, bit of beef. It could well be. That is very tricky when Norris has been really dominant in that team for the last couple of seasons. He had a different Australian alongside him, Daniel Ricciardo, and he demolished him, to be honest. Ricciardo left the sport and he had a second chance and will come back later this year again. Piastri is a superstar in the making. He's one F3, one F2, and he's putting more pressure on Lando Norris, and the fact that they're even racing wheel to wheel and he out-qualified Norris.
Well, a long way to go on this time.
Hamilton thinking that was a bit early to pit for a medium that was giving away quite a lot by the time the front runners were pitting from it, so there is a fair way to go for it. 22 more laps. Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic when you have a young hot shoe come into the team, and it's going to be a little bit awkward at the end, but I mean, thankfully for McLaren, they're both still running in the race. 7th for Norris, 8th for Piastri, and that little touch didn't do a front wing or a bit of damage to the floor.
Lap 29 of 51 here in Monza for the Italian Grand Prix, and Max Verstappen leads by over 5.5 seconds from Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc, who are making it at the moment a double Ferrari podium, but Sergio Perez is reeling them in, currently in 4th spot. Russell rounds out the top 5 as his teammate Lewis Hamilton, who's now just switched on to the medium compounder tyre, the last of the pit stoppers, gets the move in front of his old teammate and rival Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin. Hamilton up to 9th, Alonso now down to 10th as they make their way through Curva Grande. Alonso tries to have a little bit, but is not fast enough to get the fight back done. Russell, the top 5, Albon, Norris, Piastri, Hamilton and Alonso, the top 10. Lawson, Zhou rounds out the top 12. Sargent, Hulkenberg, Gasly, the top 15. Bottas, Stroll, Magnussen and Ocon, the 19 drivers that started this race. No Yuki Tsunoda, who conked out on the formation lap.
Hamilton, having cleared Fernando Alonso, can now bear down on those dueling McLarens. Piastri in 8th and then Norris in 7th. They're all stuck behind Alex Albon in the Williams, still running in 6th. Perez close to the back of Leclerc. 3/10 and coming down as they cross the line, but Leclerc still has DRS to defend with.
Norris is really catching Albon as well for 6th place as Perez goes late on the brakes in the inside of turn 1, nearly goes into the back of Charles Leclerc, who defends as well whilst trying to look in front of him at Carlos Sainz. But while Leclerc and Perez do battle, that's actually coming as a bit of a relief to Carlos Sainz, who is able to skirt a little bit up the road, not by much. This is the sound of Lando Norris, that battle with Alex Albon I just mentioned. Albon defending into the first chicane, Norris not able to get through there.
No, but Albon pitted very early, so he's running in the 6th place he started in, but he did pit early, and those hard tyres, they're going to be fading in the next 21 laps before the end of the race. So Norris, I mean, he put pressure on his teammate. He said, I'm a lot quicker than Oscar, let me through. McLaren basically did that by pitting him early and giving him that undercut to make the move. Now he's got the pressure of actually showing what he can do to go and pass Alex Albon, who defended quite nicely on the last lap, covered the inside line, and it's so tricky to go right around the outside at that first corner.
Alex Albon then was early into the pits. Lewis Hamilton was one of the latest in the pits, but he still thinks it might have been a bit early to switch on to that medium compounder tyre. He's currently in 9th, Rosanna, about 4.5 seconds off of Piastri in front.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with him. Of course, he was being passed out on track, so maybe that's why Mercedes felt they had to bring him in. But Pirelli, the tyre manufacturer in F1, said that the drivers really need to make that medium tyre get to lap 14 or 15.
Sorry, Rosanna, I've got to interrupt you there because Perez is trying for a move on Leclerc with DRS. Leclerc at risk, though, because I don't think he was able to get DRS from Sainz in front of him. That left Leclerc vulnerable. Perez trying into the first chicane, doesn't get the job there, but now he moves to the outside through Curva Grande. It's Red Bull versus Ferrari once more. Leclerc places his car on the inside line, coming into turn 4, scoots across on Perez as they come into the braking zone. There's slight contact, dust kicked up into the air. Perez manages to hold on to his Red Bull and eases off and slots in behind Leclerc. At 3rd for Leclerc still, Perez in 4th.
A little bit naughty, I think, that one from Leclerc, putting Perez slightly off the road coming into the second chicane. It was echoes back to his 2019 win and that move on Hamilton then to keep the race lead. He got a black and white warning flag for that one. It might be the same, but he's just frustrating Perez. The problem is he's dropping back from his teammate, so his best form of defence was the DRS. That's now gone. Sainz is 1.7 seconds clear, and Leclerc is out there fending for himself. This is not even good news for Sainz.
She's not giving any speech. How fast are you going to go?
Well, that's Sergio Perez on the radio. Really, they needed the Ferraris to work together here, and Sainz to keep Leclerc within that DRS zone. On the caveat is that we'll both defend from Perez, but now Sainz is over a second clear of Leclerc. That means he doesn't get the DRS. Perez does, and with the rear wing open, moves to the inside of Leclerc, and by the time they get into the braking zone, Perez is through and up into the podium positions. Leclerc down to 4th.
Easy peasy in the end for Sergio Perez. As soon as that Ferrari dropped back from the sister car, then the overspeed with the DRS was then powerful, and that was the frustration for Perez for a good 10-12 laps that he's been following Leclerc, and then finally Leclerc drops away and he's a little bit more vulnerable, and then Perez is through in the second time of asking. The first one then will I mean, I'd like to see another look of it, whether Perez had a bit more space to go on or whether Leclerc did actually force him wide. I don't think there was contact between the two then, but it's all a little bit null and void. Now Perez is back up into third place, and he will presumably go in charge and do the same on Carlos Sainz now, taking Leclerc with him. Leclerc's still right there, just half a second back on Perez. Perez has got to find a couple of seconds before he'll get to Sainz, but he will get there.
Yeah, Sainz, while his teammate was doing battle with Perez, was able to make a little bit of a buffer for himself. Perez now has to overcome 2.4 seconds, make that 2.3, so he's very much reeling him in, make it 2.2. Verstappen leads, Sainz, Perez, Leclerc, Russell the top 5, Albon, Norris, Piastri, Hamilton, Alonso the top 10, and last of the point scorers, Lawson in 11th in only his second Grand Prix for AlphaTauri, and in his career in front of Zhou Guanyu, 12th, Sargent, Hulkenberg and Bottas the top 15, Stroll, Magnussen and the two Alpines, the last two cars in this race, 18th and 19th, with Yuki Tsunoda not starting this race in his AlphaTauri. Here's Carlos Sainz.
We'll be tight to make it to the end. Okay, try your best.
Try your best. That's not really what you want to hear, is it?
Well, I think Sainz on the radio there was just sort of saying, is there a strategy option? Is there another stop that we can do? Second stop and go for a last charge? But that radio message back pretty much is like, oh, okay. Oh, just try your best then. That's not what you want to hear back. You want to be like, okay, let's switch to plan B, let's go for it. But instead, give it your best shot, and that's all he can do on a day where he's been good. He's been very, very solid. Carlos Sainz led for 15 laps, held on admirably ahead of Max Verstappen. Max has since sauntered off into the distance, 7.5 seconds now clear of the Ferrari. He's going to have his teammate now coming up behind him. Sergio Perez still a couple of seconds back though for now.
Yeah, Rosanna, I mean, a lot of questions throughout the years have been asked on Ferrari's strategy. Do you think they've called it there or thereabouts so far? Could they have done things differently?
Well, I agree. I think there might be a risk of not making it to the end. We've just seen Pierre Gasly coming in and getting rid of those hard tyres. They've done 21 laps. We saw Lewis Hamilton do 27 on the hard tyre. But it is going to be tricky to get everybody to the checkered flag without pitting again, as we've seen. Second stop for Gasly. Might there be more? We tend to see one-stop strategies play out here in Monza because you lose a lot of time pitting. You lose out on that fast straight, of course, and the pit lane is relatively long. So they won't want to go for a two-stop, but they may have to now.
Well, lap 34 of 51, and it seems to have settled down for the time being for the podium places. Leclerc, though, still staying within half a second of Sergio Perez, so he's being brought along with the Mexican, who just made the move a couple of laps ago. Next closest fight really is over 6th place. Albon in the Williams, keeping the two McLarens at bay. This time Norris ahead of Piastri, and there's battles going on all throughout the field as Esteban Ocon and Kevin Magnussen get very, very close indeed. Oh, so close to contact, but actually it's very nice driving from the both of them. But Ocon makes the move in front of Kevin Magnussen, but that's further out, way outside the points. 17th now for Ocon and the Alpine, 18th for Kevin Magnussen, who's just come into the pits.
So Perez is actually making no inroads on Sainz. Now he's got ahead of Leclerc. I thought the way that Leclerc suddenly dropped away and Perez pounced, thought he would charge down and go straight for Carlos Sainz, but he's biding his time at this stage, maybe getting those tyres back in the right window on a hot day in Monza. He's got 16 more laps left of the Grand Prix, and he's going to be the man with the best chance of making a place in the last laps if he doesn't have to defend from Leclerc, who's still half a second back with DRS on him into the first corner. He's not shaken Leclerc off by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, this hasn't been the race I thought it would be, to be honest. I mean, I know we thought Verstappen would eventually get the lead, but he didn't get it as quickly as I thought. The straight line speed wasn't outright there. The DRS effect, I think, is definitely not as much as we all thought it might be here. It's not as clear-cut as Perez is showing right now. He has reeled in Sainz, but not at a massive rate at knots, and he hasn't dropped Leclerc either.
Doing a great job at the minute, managing them nicely. McLaren's starting to struggle.
That's a nice radio message for Alex Albon, who's still running in 6th. He's very, very good on his defensive driving. That's how he's claimed pretty much all of his points for Williams so far, and is what he's having to do again. They've got a car that can qualify quite well, but the race pace isn't quite as strong. The good thing is the straight line speed is very strong for Albon, and he's still there in 6th. And this would be a huge result for the Williams team. This would definitely take them clear of the bottom 3 teams in the constructors and cement their place in 7th. Cement Albon's brilliant start to the season as well.
Okay, Lando, we think Albon is struggling quite a lot here. There, as you see.
Yeah, I see the same as you see. So.
He's close this time. Lando Norris half a second down on Albon, who starts to jink away from the McLaren on the way down to Parabolica, trying to break the slipstream. Norris could see that Albon is struggling, sliding around a little bit more, getting through those tyres, and we've had a few drivers come in for a second stop, so I wonder if that will bunch the rest of the field a little bit further up into that. Sargent now is in 11th in the other Williams, hasn't scored a point yet in Formula 1.
Yeah, he's been able to benefit as Lawson, Zhou, Gasly and Magnussen all take a second stop, so Sargent now on the fringes of the points as the McLaren of Lando Norris closes up under braking for the first chicane to the rear wing of the Albon Williams. But once again, like time and time before, like Canada earlier this year, Albon able to keep his advantage in a straight line and hold the car up behind him through the corners, and it was Ocon that time around in the Alpine. This time it is Norris in the McLaren as they come through turn 4 and 5. Albon 6th, Norris 7th, Piastri right there with them as well in 8th, Hamilton and Alonso. Bit of an anonymous race so far for both Aston Martins. Stroll down in 14th, but Alonso only scoring a point as it currently stands.
Yeah, he was beaming after Zandvoort, the Dutch Grand Prix last weekend. Finished second, split the Red Bulls, and was really thinking the upgrades were coming on and Aston Martin were getting back to their best. It's been a pretty standard race for him started 10th, still running 10th. Not much to report from Fernando Alonso. Aston Martin having their weakest race of the season really right now. Norris still looking at the back of Alex Albon for 6th place, and Perez just inching his way towards Carlos Sainz. He was actually 4/10 quicker than Sainz on the last lap. The Spaniard dropping away a little bit more rather than Perez finding the pace. So he's a second and a half back now from Sainz in second. Remember, Sainz hasn't had a podium this year, but he's getting closer to at least achieving that.
Once again, down the main straight, the battle for 6th rages on. Little bit of a lock-up, a puff of smoke from one of the McLarens as they all concertina up under braking. It's Albon in the blue, Williams in 6th, ahead of the 2 papaya oranges of McLaren.
People know we're screwed because I don't know how this time will last.
Others have made it as far on the medium tyre.
Okay, so that's Lewis Hamilton just reiterating he's really not happy on this medium compound tyre. Doesn't think it's going to last. The team think otherwise. Albon holding on to 6th in front of Norris and Piastri.
And Hamilton is the car just behind, a couple of seconds back from the 2 McLarens, but can't really go and join the fun because he's worried about getting through the medium tyre. So the reverse strategy hasn't really worked out for Mercedes and Hamilton. They needed a safety car. They needed some level of fate to intervene and give him a real chance, bunch the pack up and then put him on a faster tyre. And Lewis 9th, having started 8th. It's been a little bit like the same for Fernando Alonso. Those 2 champions on the fringes of the top 10, having a fairly quiet afternoon.
Carlos Sainz doing his best to keep that 1.5 second buffer between himself in second and Sergio Perez in third. It's just dipped under that now. Perez now 1.3 seconds behind Leclerc, 7.5 tenths behind Perez, so still being brought close in that fight. Further back, then comes Russell, but then comes this fight for 6th. Albon currently occupying that. It is Williams, moves to the inside to defend the turn 1 chicane. Norris in the McLaren takes the outside line, and Albon forces him wide. Norris has to come cut the chicane, reappears in front of Albon, and I think Norris will have to ease off as they come through the right-hander of Curva Grande, and he does so as the Williams retakes that spot in 6th.
Yeah, he chanced it around the outside, but then saw that Verstappen-Hamilton 21 collision happening on the sausage curb on the inside of turn 2, and that's the problem with trying to go around the outside. You've got to be that little bit further up along the outside through the apex of 1 to command the space at 2 and not head your way towards a collision. And Norris has got a bit more pace through the corners, doesn't have a huge overspeed on the straights, and did well to back out of that.
He forced me off. I was completely alongside. We saw that. I was completely alongside. He saw me.
He wasn't alongside enough, crucially. You've got to be ahead at the apex, and Norris was just a little sniff back from the Williams of Albon at the apex, and I don't think the stewards will be looking at that one. Well, they probably will, but I don't think they'll give him a penalty.
Yep, hasn't flashed up on our screens just yet, but we'll bring you that information if it does. Piastri not able to make any gains while his teammate and Albon was scrapping. He's still about half a second behind Lando Norris, so they all get the effect of DRS, bar Alex Albon, who has a 17.8 second gap in front of him to George Russell. But here we go again, then down to turn 1 as the sun shines down here in Monza. Late on the brakes for Albon, late on the brakes for Norris, but it's line astern. Norris not as close this time around to Albon.
Perez 1 second back from Sainz. He will probably get DRS on the next attempt. He'll be too far back to make a move, but he'll start to mount the pressure with 12 laps to go. That's for second place.
Yeah, lap 39 of 51. Verstappen leads by just shy of 9 seconds. Then comes Sergio Perez, who is now within DRS zone of Carlos Sainz. So is the writing on the wall for the Ferrari man. Leclerc has been brought along all the way with Perez since losing that 3rd spot to the Mexican. He's kept within the 1 second gap. But it's Sainz in second now, feeling the pressure as they come across the start lap 40. Perez will now get the DRS effect from Sainz in front, as will Leclerc. Carlos Sainz will not get it, but Perez not close enough to make the move stick or work even in the first place.
7/10 back. He's going to be there now for the remainder of the race. So Sainz started the race with a Red Bull behind him. He's going to finish it that way. He can hope, because he's going to have to defend, I think, from Perez. And his tyres, he did say a while ago that it was going to be marginal to the end. It's Sainz who's been a little bit harder on them so far in this Grand Prix. Let's see what he's got left.
As they all come into the Della Rosa chicane, Kevin Magnussen in the Haas does a great job of getting out of the way of the faster cars in front of him as the Haas is given the blue flag, which means he's being lapped, and they are not racing for position, so he moves out of the way. Kevin Magnussen having a bit of a torrid race, really. 19th and last, 17 seconds adrift of Pierre Gasly down in 18th. Back further up through the field in 9th, this is the sound of Lewis Hamilton trying to make a move on Oscar Piastri round the outside into the Della Rosa chicane. Piastri in the McLaren is not having anything of it. Little bit of a lock-up, forces the Mercedes behind to cut the chicane. Piastri now at risk from losing a position to Hamilton, who has reeled in this battle for 6th, really, over the last couple of laps.
Piastri's just dropped more than a second back from Norris, so that gives Hamilton a chance. A bit like Leclerc earlier on, he's lost the chance to defend. Here's Perez looking at the back of Sainz.
Is this the move for second in this race then, as the sparks fly from the rear of that Ferrari? Sainz moves to the inside. Perez late on the brakes, takes the racing line. Sainz regains the chicane. Perez slots behind him. Leclerc lurking behind too. Sainz holds on, but through the right-hander of Curva Grande. Can Perez get closer? Can he get side by side? Not on this occasion. Sainz will take the inside line, the defensive line, to try and keep Perez at bay, then moves across onto the racing line before heading through the chicane. The quick left right-hander as you exit the gravel to your left into the Lesmo 1. The quick right-hander, and Sainz holds on for the time being. Battles starting to heat up everywhere at the moment with less than 10 laps to go now, and Lewis Hamilton, having got Piastri, or having tried to get Piastri's 8th spot, is trying again, side by side through the right-hander of Curva Grande. Piastri forcing him oh so close to the grass and to the gravel, but it will be Lewis Hamilton who had the inside line, but there's contact with the front left of Oscar Piastri, and there is damage to Piastri. They both have to take to the runoff area. here. Front wing damage for Oscar Piastri, a puff of smoke going up as well. Hamilton gets through, but at what cost?
So was Hamilton there pinching across on Piastri, opening up the inside for the second chicane, and then there was the contact. Hamilton actually did well to save it and not end in the wall. Meanwhile, we've got Sergio Perez once again on the back of Carlos Sainz for second place, so we'll get back to that one. For now, Sainz is going to have to go defensive.
And he does indeed do that, but Perez is right alongside him. Sainz squeezes him as they come into the braking zone. Sainz looking left, looking right into his mirrors to see where the Mexican is in that Red Bull. Sainz doing a sterling job of defending that position. He's had to defend since starting from pole position in this race. Carlos Sainz, a man looking for his first podium in 2023. His teammate is right there with this fight as well in fourth, but it's Sainz still second, Perez third, Leclerc fourth.
Piastri pits with damage to his McLaren. The front wing, the end plate was dangling off. In fact, more than that, the front wing was all draping along the floor. So McLaren will have to give him a new nose before the end of the race. And I think that's going to put Logan Sargent temporarily to 10th.
Well, less than 10 laps to go here in the Italian Grand Prix, and there has been overtakes left, right and centre after starting from pole. Carlos Sainz of the Ferrari can't do it for the home fans. Max Verstappen has taken the lead and looks set to take his 10th consecutive Formula One race win.
He just turned across me in the braking.
Yeah, we saw that.
So that's Oscar Piastri. We've just seen an on-board look replay then from on-board the McLaren, and Hamilton does pincer him in there.
Yeah, he was just trying to open up the second chicane. I think Piastri had a tiny bit more space that he could have gone to, but it was definitely Hamilton coming across, and the stewards are looking at that one.
Move for second underway once again down the main straight as we look on board the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz, defending from Sergio Perez, who tries it once again round the outside through the first chicane but can't do it, has to bail out once more, cuts the chicane. Sainz regains the position as they head through the right-hander of Curva Grande.
He's going to have to defend, I think, every lap from here on in because he hasn't got the pace. The Red Bull is definitely quicker, but Perez is sort of running out of ideas, just hovered and hoped that he'd have the inside.
She's moving really late on braking.
I think he's doing okay. There's always space for Perez on the outside coming into the first corner. Sainz, he's covering the inside. He is then hovering back to the middle of the road, but there's always the space there. Perez tried to hang it out around the outside of the first corner and very much did a Lando Norris on Alex Albon, bounce across the curbs as he realised it would be a crash if he kept his nose in on turn 2, but he's going to have another run on the next lap as they already sweep through Ascari.
Yeah, I don't know what he tried there.
No, we'll focus on the next one because he's going to be there again. And Perez, I think he's got to force the issue more on braking. He keeps being close, but he's not able to stamp on the brakes and really force the issue at turn 1.
Back onto the main straight then, lap 44 of 51, and this battle for second is what we are focusing on. Carlos Sainz doing a staunch effort in defending what seems the faster Red Bull behind, takes to the middle of the road into the turn 1 and 2 chicane. Sainz holds on for now in front of Sergio Perez. Here is the Mexican.
He did the same to Max. Just see him off. We've reported.
See him off. We've reported him. Encouraging signs from Hugh Bird there, Sergio Perez's engineer, to try and will his man on to get this move done and get him second in this race to get what would be, I think, a first 1-2 finish for Red Bull in Monza.
And so far, I think Sainz has driven very well defensively. In the end, it was that little lock-up, wasn't it, that allowed Verstappen to go through all those laps ago, nearly 30 laps ago. It was just a bit of pressure that told, and it's going to be pressure all the way to the end for Sainz once again.
This is the sound of Lando Norris. He's trying to figure out which way he wants to go to make the move on Alex Albon. Once again into the De La Roja chicane. It's Norris on the outside, Albon in the Williams on the inside. They don't do what Hamilton and Piastri did, which ended in tears, but Hamilton is right there with them through Lesmo 1. Albon holds the position in front of Lando Norris 7th, Hamilton in 8th.
Hamilton has a 5-second penalty for coming across the nose of Oscar Piastri at the second chicane. And right now that'd put him behind Fernando Alonso, still there in 9th. Here we go on board with Perez again, still staring at the back of the Ferrari, heading down to turn 1.
I feel like I only tried this move a few seconds ago. Once again, then Sainz to the inside, but Perez is able to pull much further alongside the Spaniard, who once again forces Perez to the runoff area. He has to cut the chicane, and Perez then emerges through turn 1 and 2 in second spot. Does he yield? Will he give Sainz that place back round the outside of Curva Grande? Sainz regains second.
I think there's a bit of carbon fibre that flicked off the Red Bull. He bounced across the curbs, once again bailing out of that move, then another half-hearted attempt on the outside. I think something came off.
Hamilton into the braking zone for turn 1, round the outside of the McLaren of Lando Norris, which goes tight to the inside apex, bounces along the bright orange curbs, but the McLaren loses that position to the 7-time champion Lewis Hamilton, who now does have a 5-second time penalty for the incident with the other McLaren of Oscar Piastri. Hamilton 7th, Norris 8th.
Russell, of course, with a 5-second penalty as well.
Both Mercs.
Shouldn't affect him though in 5th.
He's not leaving any room, man. Come on. We cannot wait like this.
Perez is running out of ideas, isn't he? He's running out of ideas. Around the outside there, but he's not committed enough. Hamilton just showed how it's done, but he's really got a good run through the exit of Parabolica this time.
Takes a much wider line through the Parabolica. Sainz much tighter. Looking in his mirrors is Carlos Sainz. Weaves left then right, side by side. The Ferrari is on the inside. The Red Bull is on the outside. But before they get into the braking zone, the Red Bull of Sergio Perez is able to take the position away from Carlos Sainz, who loses second down to third as Perez already starts to pull away through the right-hand of Curva Grande, but it's not over for Sainz yet, because now he has to look to defend that final spot on the podium from his teammate Charles Leclerc.
And standing on the podium in Ferrari land at Monza, it's going to mean something to both of these guys. They're going to fight all the way as Hamilton picks up another place, does he? Looking around the outside of Albon, who has defended brilliantly today. He's got another driver in his mirrors. Piastri in the first stint, then Norris, now Hamilton on those medium tyres. And Lewis is making the mediums go, surely to the end with 5 to go. And he's going to have a run at Albon towards the second chicane. Maybe not this time around, but he's got a 5-second penalty, remember, Lewis Hamilton. Perez's move made it in Parabolica. The extra speed he carried through that corner compared to Sainz was incredible. So if you can't pass him in the first corner, do him on the straight. And it was all through that final corner. And now Leclerc is glued to the back of his teammate and will try and do the same this time around.
5 laps to go then of what has been quite an enthralling Italian Grand Prix. Can Carlos Sainz hold on for his first podium of the season down the main straight with DRS for his teammate Charles Leclerc? Leclerc moves to the inside down the main straight. It's 2 Ferraris side by side. That becomes Leclerc in front of Sainz, but Leclerc locks up, goes slightly deep into the corner. That allows Sainz to cut back on him. More traction out of the corner. Sainz now will have the outside through Curva Grande. Side by side for the 2 Ferraris. Leclerc on the inside, Sainz round the outside. Can Sainz go later on the brakes? He'll have the better line on the inside. Now Sainz locks up, and does he make the chicane? Just about, but there was nearly contact between the 2 Ferraris, battling it out for the final spot on the podium.
Mamma mia! This is a battle between the 2 Ferraris. Neither of them made the chicane. They both cut straight through. Sainz was so deep on the brakes, so committed to racing his teammate for a podium, that they both ran through, locking their wheels as they went. They were a paper's width apart coming out of the first corner as well. I don't know how they didn't touch. I don't even think you could fit a paper's width between them, but I don't think they touched there. It was so close, and Sainz is risking it for a biscuit to hang on to this podium.
A paper clip's width, perhaps, between the 2 Ferraris, but Sainz holds on for third in front of Leclerc in fourth. Russell in fifth, a little bit of no man's land. Now Hamilton is behind him, who's got through on Albon in the Williams, who's having a sterling race, but is now struggling because the McLaren of Lando Norris is right up behind him as they approach Ascari, with the Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso in ninth, also involved in that fight. The 2 Ferraris aren't letting this one go. Down into turn 1, it's side by side once again. Leclerc on the outside, and I think he dips a wheel onto the grass and loses the rear end, but controls the slide. Sainz holds on to third.
A big rear lock from Leclerc, trying it on the brakes on the outside. Sainz has got no tyres left. He's really slow through the corners, and particularly the long-loaded final corner of Parabolica. So every time Leclerc is able to get right on the rear of his teammate, but so far Sainz, he's I think he's got brilliant racecraft generally, Carlos Sainz, and he is showing it to the maximum right now, pushing everything to the limit and just about being okay there, keeping his teammate at bay. Leclerc's going to be so frustrated. They so want this podium, each of them. There's only one spot available. Hamilton has finally cleared Alex Albon, and that's the sound you can hear now of him putting in the move that so many people have tried to do around the outside of the first corner. Hamilton just plonked his Mercedes there and stayed there on the inside of turn 2, didn't run through the runoff area. He was a little bit further ahead and managed to take the place. Still has a 5-second penalty to take, but he might be able to march away from Albon and serve that and remain in 6th. He's already got 2.6 seconds on the Williams, but is struggling on its tyres.
The home fans, the Tifosi, are enjoying a remarkable battle between their two drivers. Carlos Sainz in 3rd, Charles Leclerc in 4th, and the battle for the final spot on the podium into turn 1. Sainz comes in all locked up, smoke flying from the front right of his tyres. They have gone. Leclerc isn't able to make hay on that, has to slot in behind, and I'd quite like to be Nico Hulkenberg in the Haas, who's behind them with the best seat in the house.
Yeah, just stay there. If you're Hulkenberg, he's 17th. He's a lap down. Just stay there and watch this, because it is superb racing between the two Ferraris. Seeing teammates battle like this for a podium in Monza, their home race, is just brilliant to watch. Sainz all locked up once again, trying to keep his teammate at bay. He's running out of rear tyres. That's why Leclerc's getting all these runs, but Leclerc with a huge snap through the exit of Lesmo 2's also running out of tyres. They're both turning into rally drivers for the last laps.
Guys, let's bring this home.
Oh, and he wants team orders.
I was wondering when that was going to happen.
Guys, let them fight, please.
This is absolutely fantastic. I'm going to say this is one of the best battles we've enjoyed all season long. Sainz is clinging on for a podium right now. He's got a couple more laps, though, that he has to hold on for. Leclerc is pushing them all the way. Fantastic battling between these two red Ferraris in their homeland, in front of the Tifosi. But we head back onto the main straight, and we do it all again. It is lap 50 of 51. Sainz defending that final spot on the podium, moves to the inside. Leclerc gets the benefit of DRS. Once again, they go side by side into turn 1. Sainz runs deep. Leclerc manages to hold the corner better. Sainz emerges from the exit in front, but Leclerc might be able to carry a little bit more speed through Curva Grande.
Now, given how deep Sainz went into the first corner, Leclerc should have had him on a slam dunk into the second chicane, but somehow he didn't get a run through that. He did the job at the first corner of just making Sainz send a Hail Mary defence in so deep. I thought he was going to cut through the chicane again, but he didn't take advantage on the exit. So still Sainz is on there, and this is, if he ends up on the podium here for the first time this season, fair play, because of 51 laps, so we've done 50 so far, there's been about 10 where he's not been defending or looking deep into his mirrors at the first corner.
This is the sound of Oscar Piastri, who was still in this race after a bit of front wing damage sustained with Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton got a penalty for that. Piastri down in 12th.
And no risk, race until the end, no risk.
Hang on, race until the end, no risk. Mixed messages there, I think, from Ferrari.
And if you're Leclerc,
you're not listening
just
to
race
that,
until
are you?
the end. I'm hearing the first bit, and then the second part of that radio is going crackly.
Time penalty, 5 seconds for Logan Sargent for causing a collision, but he's outside of the points anyway. Back onto the main straight. This is the final lap of the Italian Grand Prix, and the battle for the podium. 3rd place on the podium is yet to be told between the two Ferraris. Leclerc behind, tries moving to the right, then to the left, has to get onto the brakes, heads into turn 1, locked up, all steamed in, and Sainz holds on to 3rd.
And I think Leclerc's going to have something to say about moving under braking there, because he sold Sainz the dummy. He was on the outside, switched to the inside, and as soon as he did that, his teammate copied him and jinked under braking, so Leclerc smoked it in, both front tyres locked up. Looked like it was going to be a crash between the two. Having just heard the no risk radio message of Ferrari, looked like he was about to rear end his teammate, and neither of them would take this podium. And Sainz a little bit jinky on the brakes there.
Leclerc, though, is running out of options to find a way through to get himself onto the podium in Monza. Sainz heading down to Ascari with only one big corner left for the two Ferraris to do. as they continue their battle. But out in front, once again, he may not have got pole, but Red Bull and Max Verstappen continue to break the records and make new records. Max Verstappen wins the Italian Grand Prix and makes it 10 consecutive F1 race wins. Sergio Perez makes it a 1-2 for Red Bull, and across the line in third, it is Carlos Sainz on home soil for Ferrari after an intense battle with his teammate Charles Leclerc. Steals the final spot on the podium to the roar of the Tifosi. Leclerc just a 10th behind him in 4th, with Russell across the line in 5th. Hamilton should come home in 6th, but what about 7th place? Alex Albon has been holding on tooth and nail for this position for Williams. Another points-paying position for Williams, and he does do it in front of the Italian fans. Albon in 7th, Norris in 8th, Alonso picks up a couple of points in 9th, and it looks like it will be Valtteri Bottas who steals the final point for Alfa Romeo. The Italian manufacturer gets a point on home soil.
What a Grand Prix.
Okay, Max, you've done it. And a little bit of history to go with it.
Not too bad, not too bad. Well done, guys. Another win, unbelievable. And a nice one too as well.
Max, that is mighty. 10 races in a row, you're on your own, mate, now. That's history. Unbelievable, unbelievable. Well done.
Yeah, that's a nice stat.
Yeah, you can be proud of that one. A stroll in the park, some might say, Max. Mate, that's remarkable. Be proud.
Well, we forgot about him, didn't we?
Who?
Verstappen. Well done, by the way, to Max Verstappen for winning. Once again, 7.5 seconds clear of Perez, and that is 10 consecutive wins.
Yeah, well, it is Max Verstappen who crosses the line in the Italian Grand Prix to take his 10th consecutive Formula One win. He breaks all the records. Perez makes it a 1-2 for Red Bull, and a fantastic battle between the two Ferraris, ultimately going Carlos Sainz's way to steal the final podium spot on home soil for Ferrari. As the two Red Bulls on the cool-down lap run side by side, the two Ferraris also run side by side. And it's not just Verstappen making the records, it's Red Bull as well, the first team ever to win 15 consecutive Formula One races. And Perez getting second place, that's much needed for him as well. But my oh my, Ferrari gave us something to talk about during those 51 laps, didn't they?
Yeah, you got to say hats off to Red Bull. The stats are now theirs, 10 in a row and 15.
Very good weekend, you nailed it. Good job.
Yeah, that was tough. Oof. Tires. Oof. Good job, guys.
But yeah, for me, the star of the show there is Sainz, Leclerc, Ferrari. From pole, I mean, they were never going to beat Red Bull. They're just too quick. It was inevitability, really, for Verstappen. Perez had to work a little harder, but wow, the racecraft between Sainz and Leclerc, particularly at the end, and Sainz clinging on for his life for that podium. Absolutely terrific fighting. It's so rare that you get to witness teammates fighting like that in Formula One and not ending in a heap as well. Bravo to both of them.
Well, after a couple of full starts, we eventually did get underway, and what an Italian Grand Prix we got. Won by Max Verstappen. It's a Red Bull 1-2 with Sergio Perez in second. Carlos Sainz gets his first podium of the season in third in front of his teammate Charles Leclerc. Russell rounds out the top 5 in front of Hamilton. Albon, Norris, Alonso, Bottas steals the final point in 10th in front of Sargent, Williams, Piastri, Lawson, Stroll and Zhou Guanyu the top 15. Gasly, Hülkenberg and Magnussen, the 18 drivers who finished this race, with Esteban Ocon classified in 19th but not quite making it to the end. Yuki Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri couldn't start the race. Rosanna.
Wowee. Thank you for talking us through that incredible Italian Grand Prix. The battle that the Ferrari drivers put on for us there. We might have had a Red Bull 1-2, but it was all about Ferrari on home soil. Some defensive driving there from Carlos Sainz all race long, Jolien. Could you have put up that kind of defence back in your day?
Yeah, I could. Not many could, apart from me there, Rosanna.
Palmer would have run the race. Palmer would have won.
I wouldn't have let Verstappen go. believe it or not.
It would have been lap 16, wouldn't it?
Yeah. No, look, the fans have voted Carlos Sainz driver of the day, and I think what an outstanding display from him. He did make the little mistake, the one mistake in defence to allow Verstappen the lead, but thereafter, elbows out, and I love watching his racecraft. It was brilliant again.
And saying how tired he was on the radio. My goodness me, it'll have taken it out of him. But what a moment to savour, as I can see the crowd running down the track to get to the start-finish straight. Of course, the famous flag will be unfurled, the Italian flag underneath that incredible podium that juts out over the racetrack. It's going to be a moment to savour. And Carlos Sainz said coming into today's race, he feels so extremely lucky to be living this experience. Well, what a moment to savour as a Ferrari driver on home soil, to take his first podium of the season, and no less at Monza. What a moment for him in his career.
Oh, it's just fantastic. This year, in periods of dominance, it can get very easy to become a little bit bored with Formula One, but then something like this comes along and it reminds you all over again of why we love it so much.
It's the style of the podium. For Sainz starting on pole, finishing third, it could have been beaten handsomely by the Red Bulls, and that's it, cling on to what you can. But the style of that podium for Sainz, standing on, and the crowd will have loved that. They would have loved it. It'll be quite the reception for him.
And also, the battle between the Ferraris was incredible. It kept us all glued to the television, but I was really surprised how long it took both Red Bull drivers to clear the Ferraris. We had some real battles there. It wasn't a slam dunk on both occasions.
No, it wasn't, and that made this race even better, really. The DRS effect clearly not as strong as we thought.
Right, now let's join the 2016 F1 champion Nico Rosberg.
Formula One race we saw out there, and especially also thanks to your defending. I mean, that was just unbelievable. How hard was that out there?
Very tough, very tough. It cannot get any tougher than what it was today. Honestly, the whole race pushing very, very hard to keep the Red Bulls behind, and that obviously made me use the rear tires a lot, trying to keep up with them and trying to keep them behind. And in the end, I end up paying a bit the price with the rear tires. But I did everything I could to defend with all the cars that I could, and brought it home in the end in P3. But it was a tough one for sure.
And that battle with your teammates, oh my goodness, that was close.
It was tough. It was tough, hard racing. It's always been a pleasure to race Charles whenever we've had the chance, and today was the same. Great racer, same as Max and Checo. We have fun out there today, and I hope you guys enjoyed also.
I think, the Red Bull car was just too fast again today. So can you still be happy with that P3 here at Monza, the home race?
I think we just need to keep working on our pace, on our tire understanding. I think today it was obvious that we were wearing the tires a bit more, and we were just lacking a bit of pace. But it's definitely a big step forward compared to Zandvoort. And this weekend we've been best of the rest, which is a good result for the team given the circumstances.
Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you.
Checo, what a great catch-up you did in that race. Can you be happy with P2?
I think it was basically the maximum we could have achieved today. It was so difficult to overtake, a lot harder than we really thought. I think we were lacking some Australian speed. We were having some great exits out of Parabolica, but still it was not enough. I was most of the time 0.2, 0.3, and 0.2 will give me a chance, but 0.3 I will not even get close. So to get through Charles and then to get through Carlos, it was pretty insane because I had to use a lot of my tires.
And you were trying everything and being creative, trying outside lines in Parabolica and everything. Did you at times think, damn, this is not going to work, or you were really confident?
Yeah, I really thought at times, especially in the beginning, I couldn't get close to Charles because we were stuck in the DRS. I started to put the pressure on Charles, and he lost the DRS from Carlos. And then, it was also a lot of fighting with him, and in the end we managed to get both of them.
Your pace in the race when you're clear, is really looking good all weekend. Do you think you're going to be able to find some progress now for the rest of the season to get closer to Max?
Yeah, I think we've done a lot of progress on the setup side. I'm feeling a lot more comfortable in the car. So I do expect that we will see the best form in the next races.
We look forward to that then. Good.
Thanks.
Best of luck. Max Verstappen, unbelievable once again, another record, 10 in a row. Does that mean something to you? Is that special?
Yeah, I think, I never
would have believed that was possible. But we had to work for it today, and that made it definitely a lot more fun.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at one of those moments battling with Carlos all the way through the beginning of the race. How hard was that?
Yeah, we had good pace. I think we were good on the tires, but they had a lot of top speed, and it was so hard to get close and get a move on into turn 1, so I had to force him into a mistake. And luckily, it came at some point where he locked up. And then I had better traction, of course, out of turn 2, and basically from there onwards we could again do our own race.
Did you doubt at one point, like, oh man, maybe I'm not going to be able to win this today?
I was just trying to stay patient. It was still a very long race. I could see they were struggling a lot with the rear tires, so I just had to pick my moment.
And after that, just awesome car, felt great, yeah?
Everything felt good. We had to nurse a little issue at the end, but we had luckily, of course, a gap behind, so I could easily back off.
Amazing. So congratulations again to win here in Monza. Very special.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
2016 F1 champion asking the questions to the top 3 this afternoon, who were, of course, Carlos Sainz P3, P2 Sergio Perez, and Max Verstappen, making history in Monza. Oh, that's got to hurt as a Tifosi fan, but still they line the start-finish straight with their flag unfurled, waiting to see one of their own on the podium. Carlos Sainz will be up there to savour the atmosphere. But it was interesting, wasn't it, as Nico was talking to Max about his sort of couldn't really believe that it was taking so long to pass Carlos Sainz, that straight line speed of the Ferrari. But also I always thought that DRS on the Red Bull was so powerful, Jolyon, but today it didn't seem to be quite like that.
Well, it's low downforce. When you trim out the rear wings, the DRS has less effect, and it's actually not that easy to pass in Monza. And also Red Bull were more geared towards downforce than Ferrari were as well, so it actually was shoe on the other foot for Red Bull. They had to work for their overtakes, and it also gave us a great fight.
And do you know what? I'm in not exactly the shape of my life myself, but the drivers coming into the media pen are looking incredibly tired. Hot day here in Monza, 30 degrees, obviously warmer in and around a Formula One car, but it seems like it was more physical than perhaps we often are used to in Monza. Normally you've got quite a bit of time on the straights to compose yourself.
Yeah, but when they did have time on the straights, particularly for our top 3 or 4, they were having to, Sainz in particular, having to left, then right, where's he going to place the car, constantly moving and thinking.
Rosanna, if you could see us in the commentary box, we're looking equally fatigued. Oh, we're gone.
I am in the fitness of my life, and that was a struggle.
Yeah, even I need a lie down after that one.
Someone bring the guys electrolyte drinks, rapido, please. Well, look, guys, it was a pleasure listening to you call that Italian Grand Prix. What a show the Ferrari drivers put on. Of course, Formula One takes a little bit of a break now, and then we head to Asia, to Singapore. A totally different circuit, so tight and twisty. Max Verstappen taking his 10th consecutive win. I mean, we're already going to talk about it, aren't we? Is the 11th there? Does that car suit that track? I mean, it suits them all, doesn't it?
Yep. Not much more to add. I mean, in the end, he said he was nursing an issue, and he's got the luxury of being able to cruise in most of these Grand Prix as well, so they're not even having to test their car to the limit. He didn't win in Singapore last year. It was one of the few in the last 12 months he didn't win on. It was his teammate who won it there, and it's difficult to overtake. So if he doesn't start at the front, then unlike Monza, it's not even the easiest here, but it will be even harder in Singapore, so qualifying will be more important next time.
Oh, I'm sniffing a bit of jeopardy there, Jolyon. Oh, well, guys, thank you so much. I'll let you go and cool down in a dark room after a scintillating Italian Grand Prix. Jolyon Palmer, Harry Benjamin up in the commentary box, and I'm Rosanna Tennant down in a very hot pit lane and paddock. The atmosphere here still electric, and I'm sure as the podium gets underway with Carlos Sainz on P3 this afternoon, it's going to be fabulous to watch. We'll be back for the Singapore Grand Prix, but don't forget you can listen to the Checkered Flag podcast as well, where Jolyon, Harry and I will give our thoughts on what we've just seen here in Italy. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.